As Councilmember Collins gets here, we will apologize for the tardiness. We had closed session, which ran a couple minutes over, but we were able to finish what we needed, so it's nice to get that finished. Okay, let me just find the agenda here somewhere. All right, I'm going to call to order the City of San Carlos City Council successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency Housing Authority regular meeting for November 27th, 2023. And we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it is led by a member of Scout Troop 4301. So if you want to come up front, Lydia, and do that. You all please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let me go back and just read one little thing here. Okay. So we're going to have way too many papers today to read. Okay. This is just a reminder because we've had some disruptive public comments before. I'd just like to remind members of the public that this meeting is a limited public forum for public comment. Speakers must stay on topic if speaking on a particular agenda item, and if speaking during the general public comment, they must address matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. If speakers fail to follow these rules or the city rules on decorum and civility, they'll be warned, and if they continue to disregard our rules, their opportunity to speak will be ended for the evening. Okay, are there any changes to the order of the agenda? Okay, from staff? No. Okay. Greg, is there any report from closed session?
No reportable action from closed session.
Okay. Next, we have presentations. The first is to present a city coin to community volunteer Tim King. So if Tim can come up. All right. In the middle. We'll get you in the middle, Tim. So, as many of you know, this is one of the things I started. We have I like to point out our City Coin groupies in the back. They are City Coin winners who now come to see who gets the next coin. But this is something I started last year. We started in January as mayor to recognize some of our amazing community volunteers. And so I'm honored to provide Tim with the City Coin. I'll give you a little background on Tim's volunteer service. He has lived in San Carlos for over 30 years, and he is originally from Spiceland, India. That's a good, Indiana, I should say. That is a good name, good spot. And he and his wife Nancy have raised their 2 children here. Tim has served on the PTA at the Heather Elementary Committee School, including being past PTA president for 2 terms. He's been newspaper editor. He served on the San Carlos PTA Coordinating Council and is a past president there. He's worked on Spring Fling, which is one of the big school district fundraising events for 9 years. He also has worked on Week of the Family for 20 years as a past chairperson, webmaster, and chair of Rise Against Hunger, which provided 15,000 meals for areas of food insecurity. He's also served on the Hometown Days Committee for 15 years as past secretary, and he has taken the job of posting and creating event signs all over the place. So if you see them, you have Tim to thank for that. He's also past PTA president for Carmont High School. He's a member of the San Carlos Lions Club, a board member, past president, and also a member of San Carlos Together, which provides funding for smaller San Carlos nonprofits. He's a busy person on top of his regular job. So, Tim, thank you for your service to our community. It makes us better, and I'm pleased to present you with this coin. I'd like to say a few words. The floor is yours. You guys can come right here.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to my wife, Nancy, who's put up with a few, nights where I've missed dinners or pointed out that, oh yeah, do you mind that I've got 10 people coming over later tonight for a meeting? That's happened, I think, more than once. And my daughter, Mary, who put up with me at that frantic time where we made signs for Hometown Days, and it was the last minute. And she put up with me, and I appreciate that. So thanks to my daughter, Mary. Anyway, I just wanted to point out to everybody on the group here, the City Council, that we've got the Lions Club crab feed coming up in February. And on the website right now, you can Google San Carlos Lions, and you'll be able to find 2 events. We're putting on a whiskey tasting this year, and it's on January 13th, and it's available to 100% of the funds from that go to this year's Rise Against Hunger event, which is sponsored by the San Carlos Lions Club, the Week of the Family, the San Carlos Kiwanis Club, and a few other groups, including possibly Parks and Recs, throughout the city. So anyway, thanks to all the support. It's been great being a resident of San Carlos. I love this city. When we moved here, we knew what a great place it was, and it certainly has turned out to be that way. So thank you all. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Is there any comments on this item?
I do not have any slips for anyone.
And any of my colleagues? I don't see anything. Okay. Tim, thanks again, and congratulations. All right. On to the next item, which is present a proclamation to Lydia Rack with Scout BSA Troop 4301 upon receiving her Eagle Scout Award. Overly excited to be grabbing this stuff. Okay, this is extra special for me. As you can imagine, we share the same last name, so I'm excited as to, I guess as mayor, you probably have very few opportunities to present your own child with a proclamation. So I'm excited to do this. Lydia is, let's see, the 6th Eagle Scout in her family, I think, dating back to the 1930s. So it's been something that's been amazing in our family, and I'm super proud of you. So. I'll try not to get too emotional in this.
You got it.
All right. Commending Lydia Rack upon achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. Whereas Scouts BSA is the traditional scouting program for youth age 11 to 17 years old, preparing themselves to be future citizens and leaders. And whereas Scouts BSA is committed to fostering the traits of leadership and strength of character among its members. And whereas Scouts BSA plays a vital force in the lives of hundreds of youth in the city of San Carlos who are guided by adult volunteers who have given generously of their time and talents. And whereas for her service project, the final requirement for the rank of Eagle Scout, Lydia Rack utilized her leadership skills to organize and inspire her team while planning and managing the project to completion. And whereas the special and unique honor of achieving the highest award bestowed by the Scouts BSA was earned by Lydia Rack of Troop 4301 for building a meditation labyrinth at Big Canyon Park, including lavender plants, a bench, and a cat in the center of the labyrinth. And whereas Lydia Rack's project offers a fun, quiet space for people in the park to think, relax, meditate, and self-reflect, and is a great benefit to the San Carlos community and all who visit Big Canyon Park. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Adam Rack, Mayor of the City of San Carlos, hereby congratulate Lydia Rack on the attainment of the prestigious rank of Eagle Scout and commend her for her service and accomplishments as a member of the Scouts BSA, presented this 27th day of November, 2023.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, but I think that the mother should also be in any photo ops.
Good. All right.
Hi, I'm Lydia. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my project. So as you can see, I created a labyrinth in Big Canyon Park. I surrounded by lavender because I love lavender. And it has a bench and a walkway up to it. I chose this project because I knew from the first that I wanted to do something in the community and that I wanted to work with the Parks and Rec Department. I felt like our parks have a lot of really great active places for children, but we don't have a lot of quiet, reflecting meditation spaces. One thing that I really feel like I learned from this project is just how much teamwork it takes. Nothing is done without support, and I feel like this really showed. Whether it's from just the labor itself that I got from my scout troop members, or all the bouncing off ideas with the Park and Rec Department, and a special thanks to Lingso, who donated all the stones that were $2,000+ and I truly wouldn't have been able to make it without. As I said, the Parks and Rec Department and Public Works did a huge amount on this project. They helped me come up with the idea in the first place and then really bring the idea to life. I think I really just wouldn't have been able to do it without them, and the support of San Carlos community and my friends and my parents. I feel like throughout this project, there's a few difficult things. One, the math. Figuring out how many stones I needed turned out to be a lot more difficult than I imagined, but I ended up having just the exact amount. Also, finding jobs for each people. Sometimes I wanted to figure out how to delegate in the right way, and I worked with a lot of scouts from different ages, which can make it tricky because some people have a difficult time carrying heavy stones and putting everything in place, but I feel like I really learned that it's about figuring out what works best for each person and what they can truly do well. Anyway, I'm really proud of the project, and it's really fun when I get to drive by the canyon and get to watch either people just sitting and enjoying the view or kids running around in it. And I really wouldn't have been able to do it without all the support I got. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And despite Mayor Rack's obvious conflict of interest, I wholeheartedly support this proclamation and congratulate Lydia on a very thoughtful and appropriate project. I've walked the labyrinth. I'm happy to announce I did not get lost. It's just a really nice addition to that part of Big Canyon Park. So thank you for that. And it was fun hearing about the teamwork involved and the fundraising involved, and seems like a full, and engineering involved, so kind of a full meal deal project. So congratulations and thank you.
All right. Is there any public comment on this item?
No, I don't have these slips.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Lydia, congratulations again, and thank you for being here, and nice work on the project. And thanks to all that helped make it a reality. Okay, we're going to move on to council communications and announcements. These are brief items from members of the City Council regarding upcoming events in the community. Do any of my colleagues have anything they'd like to add? Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, I have two items. The first is I attended a commute.org meeting. I'm the designated board member for that group. And I wanted to let my colleagues know that the San Mateo County Transportation Authority did a presentation on the 101 Corridor Connect project. And this is run by the TA, and they're looking at congestion management projects along 101. They're doing North County right now, but they will start in San Carlos in the spring of this coming year. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to raise our Holly 101 interchange again, because they're looking at projects that are multimodal, that address not only cars, but also pedestrians and people on bicycles. So I did send it over to Stephen and our staff, and there's going to be a lot of community outreach in the spring, so stay tuned. So I wanted to let you know about that. And then also in San Carlos, we had Small Business Saturday over the weekend, and I just wanted to thank our staff and the members of the Economic Development Advisory Commission for working with Art Bias to put together some really beautiful tote bags that were given out by our local businesses. There are Thursday night lights shopping events coming up on Thursdays this month and next. And I also wanted to let the community know free coupon books for our local businesses will be given out at the Night of Holiday Lights on December 1st, this Friday. So please take advantage of all of those great programs out there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember McDowell. I don't see anyone else. I did have two. One, I just reiterate thanks for raising the holiday lights as well. So I hope everyone will come join on the 1st for the lighting. And then also, since I sit on the Rethink Waste Board, I just wanted to share that there will be a few changes, and we'll get this out through social media and other places through the holiday collection for recycling and composting and trash. So if your collection is on Christmas Day on Monday or New Year's Day and New Year's Day, both on Mondays, it will, if your collection day falls on the holiday, your service will be the Saturday before, so December 23rd and December 30th, and that only applies for those 2 Mondays. So, but we'll be getting some more information out on social media for that as well. So, and with that, we will move on to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull any item from the consent calendar? Okay, is there any public comment on the consent calendar items?
No, I don't have any slips.
Okay, if not, I will take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve City Council consent calendar items A through K.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Crystal, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. All right, we're now moving on to reports to council. This is to number 9A, to receive a report on the current trails project. All right, Amy Newby.
Good evening, Mayor Rack, council members, and community. My name is Amy Newby, Director of Parks and Recreation. Tonight, I also have joining me in this presentation, Andrea Martisich, Assistant Community Development Director. So tonight, Andrea and I will review what we've been working on this past year following the adoption of a new strategic goal of recreation services, specifically looking at the trail efforts in the community this year. At the end, we also have our City Attorney, Greg Rubens, with us, who can answer any questions you may have. So we'll start this evening with the Los Vientos access point, potentially allowing pedestrian access into Pulgas Ridge open space. As you can see here, this is a map of Pulgas Ridge Open Space Preserve. The potential pedestrian access is highlighted in that red box at the top of the screen. And this is a view here from the end of Los Vientos Way, where you can see there's a locked gate prohibiting pedestrian and hiking access into Pulgas Ridge. So in around 2011, 2012, the Trails Committee in San Carlos completed the Trails Connection Plan, which identified 15 local trails connections in the community. In this plan, the Los Vientos access connection was identified as the second highest priority. And as you can recall, this last September, City Council made a finding that public use of the easement was to prohibit vehicles from entering the Pulgas Ridge open space, but did allow for pedestrians and hiking access. Following council's action that September meeting, the mayor sent a letter of request to Mid-Peninsula Open Space District Board, requesting for them to consider opening the gate and allowing pedestrian and hiking access from this location. A notice of exemption has been prepared by our on-call consultants, should access be granted by Mid-Pen. And following the council's action in September, staff did host a community meeting on November 7th for residents to discuss this action. Approximately 5 residents who live adjacent to the proposed access came and spoke about their concerns of the pedestrian access. Concerns were related to parking, trash, and safety. And then there were approximately 20 residents that came from the community and spoke in support of this access. There was one woman in particular who served on that Trails Committee back in the early 2000s where they identified this priority access. This meeting was also attended by the Assistant Manager of Mid-Pen, Brian Malone, who indicated that this item is tentatively scheduled for the Mid-Peninsula Open Space Board to discuss this at their February or March meeting. Next, Andrea will discuss the Trillium Lane Trailhead easement.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Andrea Martisich. As Amy mentioned, I will be discussing the next 2 trails projects, the first of which is the Trillium Lane Trail easement. As part of the research into local trail opportunities throughout the city, staff identified an easement that would allow hiking access into Water Dog Lake and Open Space, which is located within Belmont. The yellow line on the map reflects the approximate easement, which is located along Trillium Lane. And you can see it goes down the road itself and then veers inward. The easement itself is 30 feet wide and was created in 1973 as part of the subdivision for Trillium Lane. The easement has been surveyed, and we found that there's actually a retaining wall built across the easement at one portion that looks like it was constructed sometime between 2006 and 2014. So we're currently looking at alternate options to access the easement and figure out how to move around that. If constructed, the trail would be that portion that's turned inward, as I said, and you can see on the map where it connects with the Finch Trail on the top part of the screen. The CEQA consultant is currently reviewing this project for environmental impacts and seeing if there's any sensitive plant species within the location. And then, as I mentioned, construction would only be on the portion going inward, not anywhere along the road itself. The next area I'd like to discuss is the Devonshire Canyon Trail System. In 2012, the San Carlos Hillside Trails Plan was adopted, which addressed potential trail connections within the Devonshire Canyon open space, along with 2 other city parks. As part of this plan, an initial study and mitigated negative declaration, or MND, was adopted at the same time. On this map, the red line represents the approximate location of a proposed trail, beginning at Vista Park, where the red dot is, through Lot G, and along a 30-foot wide easement at the rear of the existing condominiums. Lot G, which is the parcel that has the stripes on it, has an easement across the entire property. The city has entered into a contract for trail design services, and preliminary design has begun. The consultants will design a trail, as I mentioned, from Vista Park into Lot G to the end of the easement. And this preliminary design has already been studied as part of the initial study and mitigated negative declaration that I mentioned was adopted in 2012. As part of some of the mitigation measures for this document, the city will be studying potential sensitive plant species prior to completing final design and construction. Because of specific blooming periods of some of these species, the survey will occur in spring or summer of 2024. And if any of these species are found, the various measures that could be taken could include either rerouting portions of the trail or replanting the species, again, according to the mitigation measures prepared by a biologist. Construction of the trail is anticipated to begin in late summer or early fall of 2024. And then finally, the city has identified another possible connection. And on this map, you'll see that dotted yellow line, and that is where we are looking at. This possible connection would be from the southern end of the existing easement up to what's known as Top of the World, a small parcel owned by the city where that yellow dot is located. Excuse me. Since this particular connection was not included in the original trails plan, a CEQA consultant has been hired to prepare an addendum to the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for that trails plan. An easement will be necessary for that yellow portion shown on the map, and as this has not yet been obtained, nor has environmental review been completed, it has not been included in that current design process that I've mentioned. And with that, I would like to hand it back to Amy.
Okay, so our last update for this evening is on the regional trail connection. So the map here on the screen shows trails you can see to the north of San Carlos and to the south of San Carlos, with San Carlos being this missing link of a larger and broader goal of a regional trail connection and system. The image on the top right of your screen is a graphic from the San Mateo County Trails Master Plan. And you can see this missing link is identified in this plan, and I'm sorry, I don't have like a pointer, is as the East Ridge Boundary Trail, P11, and it's the orange north-south arrows just east of the Big Cañada, and you can see 280. So recognizing the unique opportunity to provide regional trail connections, we hosted a multi-jurisdictional meeting with Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, the County of San Mateo, the City of Belmont, and San Francisco Public Utilities Commission to discuss San Carlos as this missing connection into a regional trail access from the south, including Edgewood Park and Pulgas Ridge, into the county trail systems to the north of San Carlos. However, to initiate a trail design, it needs to be determined who the lead agency will be to conduct the CEQA analysis. Staff will continue conversations with the County of San Mateo and SFPUC to determine the next steps. All in all, it was a good meeting with the various agencies to get this effort initiated. And in closing tonight, I wanted to bring to your attention the support of our Parks and Recreation Foundation. As you can see here, the board has committed to $20,000 of funding for trail improvements and expansion for the next 3 years, $60,000 in total. Many of them are avid hikers themselves and have expressed their excitement in some of these efforts staff is working on. And with that, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Amy and Andrea. Do any of my colleagues have questions on this item? I'll start with Councilmember Venkatesh and then Vice Mayor Dugan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any questions. I just have a comment, and I'm super excited about this.
Okay, Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, similar, no questions. I've been involved in this subcommittee. I really appreciate all of Park and Rec's hard work on this and all the outreach and communication and thoughtful planning that's gone into this. And it's a big effort, and I just want to congratulate Mayor Rack on bringing our focus as a city to this. And as you flip through this is an amazing array of additional access and trail and connection opportunities for our city. So I really appreciate the push on this this year, and I would support any and all efforts to continue with all of these projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Dugan. Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions either, but since my colleagues have jumped into comments, I'm going to follow suit and just say thank you to staff and thank you to the subcommittee. I know that we've heard about, different trails kind of piecemeal, but seeing this comprehensive presentation tonight, it's really incredible. And I wanted to thank Mayor Rack for making this one of your hallmarks of your mayorship. It's, making these connections and providing open space to our community is a real legacy. So I wanted to thank you for your hard work and your leadership in this.
Thank you, Councilmember McDowell. All right. I just want to say thank you to Amy and Andrea and the team, Greg, and everyone else who's been involved in this process. I'm looking forward to over the next year that we have some great opportunities. Do you have a sense for when Mid-Penn is going to consider the Los Vientos access point?
It's tentatively scheduled on one of their February or March agendas.
Got it. Okay. And in terms of the Trillium Lane, do we have a time frame for when we might be able to move forward with that?
The biggest obstacle right now is figuring out that retaining wall. So we're working with the city attorney to reach out to the HOA and figure out how to get through that part. CEQA is almost done for that. So that's oftentimes what will hold up a project. But that's pretty much ready to go. We just need to finalize that easement around or through the retaining wall to finalize CEQA, and then we should be ready to start.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we've made great progress on that, and thank you again for all the support and work. And John, thanks for your help on the subcommittee for helping to drive this forward. Crystal, is there any public comment on this item?
Yes, we do have one slip at the moment from Todd Morse.
Okay.
And if you're interested in speaking on this item, go ahead and fill out a slip and you can drop it off to me. Thank you.
Hi there, resident since 1951 when I was born here. Anyway, since about 2006, a person introduced me to, you may have heard of Harold Drake, who is building a trail within Big Canyon Park. That was just by chance because I got laid off from a job. And I said, hey, a friend said, hey, you might like to join him. And I found out I had an addiction to trail building and maintenance. So since that time, I've been doing about 90% of all the trail building and maintenance in Eaton and Big Canyon Parks and various places throughout the area too. Anyway, in regards to this actual project, just as far as the Devonshire Canyon project, we visited this back in 2012, I think you mentioned, and in concern with the Lot G, Mr. Rubens probably will back me up for this. Lot G is owned by the condo owners or whatever just above it, and he kind of had a deal worked out for the city would buy that Lot G for $1,000 as a token amount, and that would release them from any liability, except then they found out that they owed $10,000 in back taxes, and so the deal's off because they didn't want to go into that. Is that correct, Mr. Rubens? Somewhat, vaguely.
It's partially correct.
I don't know what kind of has changed now that we can get an easement through it, and who is liable if somebody falls down. Is that the condo owners? I'm not really kind of into that kind of thing about liability or things. But anyway, at the time, I think they actually had a red line that is drawn there. I actually had that route lined out, except then I found out the Lot G fell through, and that kind of killed the thing. But also, I wasn't too thrilled about building an out and back trail. In other words, walk to that corner and back kind of thing. That is not something that ever, because, okay, once you get there, what it is, you can kind of get through there onto the Jeep road down below, which leads up to...
Tommy, your time's up, so you need to...
Okay, but anyway. So it's kind of iffy about the Devonshire Canyon thing. Also, if nothing else, can they please put something in the budget for actual trail maintenance? You can build these trails, but the city does not maintain them.
Okay.
I asked Amy's predecessor.
Tom, we need to wrap it up because your time's up and we have other speakers. So we will certainly make note of the trail maintenance as well.
Done by the city.
Okay. All right. Are there any other speakers for this item, Crystal?
No, I have no more slips.
Okay. Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And two two quick things. First, just thank Tom for all his efforts and all that trail building, and I do support maintaining our trails and would entertain necessary budgets if that makes sense. And then secondly, I think I'd meant to say this in council communication, but it's part of this item, so I'm going to say it now. Thank you for Stephen and Lou and our public works staff for the new garbage cans at Top of the World. We had a resident reach out about those, sent us some pictures of some junk that had been dropped off, and I've seen that in the past. And I replied and I said, yeah, I think that would be a good spot for it, but you know, this is government, things take time, you know, maybe a budget cycle, you know, we'll see what we can do. And they showed up about 10 days later, so I just thank our pretty amazing staff for that, and that's a good spot to have garbage and recycling, so thank you. Wanted to call that out.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Dugan. And Tom, again, thanks for all your work on the trails, and we'll certainly look into trail maintenance work funding for the future. Okay, I don't see any other items, any other comments or hands for this one, so let's move on to item 10A, which is a public hearing for consideration of the following actions for the proposed pedestrian mall. So there are 4 items. One is consider, and we'll take them in order. So first we'll go with consider all written objections to the establishment of the proposed pedestrian mall on the 700 block of Laurel Street between Cherry and Olive Street from owners of lands abutting the proposed pedestrian mall. Turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to present to the council this interesting procedure and in considering a pedestrian mall on the 700 block of Laurel Street. So the first action that you're going to be considering is to consider any written objections to the establishment of the proposed pedestrian mall for the 700 block of Laurel Street as described in the staff report. The second item is adopt a resolution establishing a pedestrian mall, assuming there's not a sufficient number of objections. The third item is consideration of claims for legal damage by persons owning or having an interest in property which might suffer legal damage. And if there are legal claims, consider a resolution directing the city attorney or another attorney designated by the city attorney to bring an action in the Superior Court for determination of the legal damages claimed. And the last item is introduction of an ordinance to establish a new chapter 12.40 for the pedestrian mall. So the council might recall that in June 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the city council approved a temporary park program on Laurel Street and San Carlos Avenue and the temporary street closure of the 600 and 700 blocks of Laurel Street, which was later reduced to just the 700 block. That program currently is set to expire on September 15th, 2024. On August 28th, the council adopted Resolution 23.1-108 declaring its intention to establish a year-round pedestrian mall on the 700 block of Laurel Street. A lot of notice and procedure went into that decision. We placed A-frame signs on Laurel Street every 200 feet or so, including on the side streets on Olive and Cherry, to make sure the public had an exact copy of the resolution that the council adopted, and they were made aware of all the procedures that were required in order to either make a protest or objection or a claim against the idea of the pedestrian mall. The resolution of intent also set tonight's public hearings for the specific date and time of November 27th, 2023. And I'll just underline that the action tonight is only concerning the proposed pedestrian mall. It does not affect the temporary parklet program or pilot parking programs that currently exist. So this is a description of the block of the 700 block of Laurel Street that would encompass the area that'll be part of that'll become the mall. You can see a number of different properties on the mall. So I created this flow chart for the council and the public. The first action or item you're going to consider is whether there are sufficient protests. It has to be more than 50% of the street frontage on the pedestrian mall. If there's not sufficient protest, you go to the adopt the resolution approving the pedestrian mall, and claims hearing on the claims for damages come after that, according to the protocol. And if no claims or no valid claims received, then you can move to the introduction of the ordinance. If there are valid claims received, you direct the city attorney to file suit to resolve the claims, and the ordinance cannot be considered. So the council should hold the public hearing to consider all the protests, if any, that were received, and any consider the claims. Let me see. Oh no, there's a second slide for that. So I guess that right at this point, the council can open the public hearing for the protests. And we can ask for public comment, but I can tell you what we've received is we have a letter from someone who owns a business, not a property, on the 600 block, who has made a objection, but he's not eligible to make an objection because he's not on the 700 block and does not have street frontage. And we have another letter from someone that I think we should, that we received just before 7 o'clock tonight. It's a handwritten letter. It should be up on the dais. This could be considered it says they have serious concerns about the closure of our block. They say the objector is Susan Horn and Terry Horn. And it doesn't really quite use the term objection, but if we consider this, even if we consider this an objection, it is an insufficient frontage of the street. Is only the 733, 737, and 731 Laurel Street, which they claim to own. So insufficient. The last two sentences of their letter I'll get to later when we get to the damage claims. So there are insufficient protests on the establishment of the pedestrian mall. And I think I'd like to take, because of the correspondence received, I'd like to ask the council to take, before adopting the resolution establishing the mall, I'd like to have the council consider the one potential damage claim that we received before you move on to the resolution, because I didn't anticipate getting this at this time. So that's because the resolution includes some findings related to the damage claims. So I want to make sure those are heard before. So why don't we, Crystal, why don't we call the people who have put in slips first for the protests.
Okay, so we can open the public hearing?
Open the public hearing,
Okay, we'll
please.
open the public hearing. This is related directly to item 10A number 1.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Greg, just so I understood,
It should be the entire item. I think let's hear
You can do the
everything.
entire item then. All right, so if you have, and do we want to take any questions from council first before we do that? We typically,
Yes, if
do
you
that?
have any questions of me, I'm glad to answer any questions on that.
before we start, and then if not, we can take public comment on this. I don't see anything from my colleagues, so if we'll go ahead and take public comment then.
So I have 2 slips at this moment. First up is Sue Horn. If you can approach the podium, please. And then you'll be followed by Brian Mosideri.
Good evening. I'd like to say I had the privilege of living in San Carlos for 18 years, and coming back tonight, kind of wish I never left. What a wonderful town. My brother Terry and I own the building at 733 through 741 Laurel. We're concerned for our retail tenant there, whose revenues have been seriously down since the closure of the block. And this is our well-respected local merchant who's been there for over 20 years. His revenues being down, we've accepted dramatically lower rents, so it has affected our value. The question I have for you was an idea my brother had. have you considered closing to pedestrians only Thursday or Friday through Sunday instead of entirely instead of the entire week? Is that something you looked into?
So this isn't, we're not sort of, it's not a Q&A session here. We can address that afterwards, but we don't want to cut into your time.
Okay, well, we've stated what we had to say in the letter, so I don't need to take your time on that. So I hold that for questions and answers.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Brian
Moriarty.
Moriarty, thank you. You're up next.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't write my name clearly enough. Hi, Council. So I'm Brian Moriarty. I have lived in San Carlos for 25 years. I'm a local volunteer soccer coach and now the neighbor of an Eagle Scout. I like the pedestrian mall. I've really enjoyed I'm within walking distance of downtown. And I've always enjoyed pedestrian zones in cities in Europe and kind of wished we had more of those in America and didn't really realize we'd have a chance to have one in the town I live in. So it's been great. My wife and I have really liked walking down there, and I don't know if parking's been addressed, but for me, I haven't noticed it being any worse than before. I usually walk, but occasionally drive if I'm in a hurry to get there, and it's been the same as before. So I'm in favor of the pedestrian mall. I think it's a good idea. That's it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. And then we do have one more from Henry Ng.
Okay.
Mayor, City Council member, my name is Henry Ng, 12-year San Carlos resident. I also own a business on the 600 block of Laurel Street. I object the closure of the 700 block only. I'm for closing 600, 700, and 800, or nothing at all. I think the proposed closure will create inequitable business environment for the downtown community. When the city hosts downtown events such as Goblin Walk, Art and Wine Festival, Holiday Light-Up Nights, Block Party, 600, 700 block, 800 block, and San Carlos Avenue are invited and involved, right? The permanent closure of the section of the 700 block the consideration of closing the downtown street is such a strategic decision for us. It's going to impact generation of San Carlos residents. It seems that we are just focusing on picking 700 block as the golden child. My comment is public funds are being spent on the external consultants. Could the city share what the findings are in terms of the vision or considering closing the entire city, entire downtown 600, 700, and 800 block? Can the city provide us with the rationale on the decision of just closing the 700 block? How is this equitable to the rest of the business in downtown? Can we get some economic data to justify the closure of the 700 block versus 600 or 800 blocks? I've spoken to my fellow neighbors and customers. It seems that they are for the closure of downtown, right? They like a pedestrian mall. The common question that they have is, why don't they get a say on which block get to be closed? Is that something we can put on the ballot, have the San Carlos resident decide? That's my question. I sincerely wish San Carlos be the city of good living for our residents and for our business owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Okay, is there any other?
And I do not have any other further slips.
Okay. All right. Pardon? So we have no other comments? Okay, then I think we could move to close the, unless Greg, did you want to cover that other item first?
We need to talk about the
let's do
letter
that
we
first.
received.
But I will.
That's part of the public hearing is the
All right,
damage
so
claims
Greg, I'll
part of
turn
it.
it back to you to discuss the letter.
So the letter we received on this evening just before 7 could be considered a protest. Again, there's not sufficient number of protests, but it mentions that there's a potential for a damage claim, but it's defective because the law requires specifically at Streets and Highways Code 11,304. Oops. I want to quote the code. Says that in order, when someone files a claim, it must be a written claim for damages. The claim must describe the real property as to which the claim is made, must state the exact nature of the claimant's interest, must state the nature of the claimed damage, and must state the amount of the damages claimed. So this letter does not meet the requirements of Streets and Highways Code 11,304 as a claim for damages because the statement it makes is we feel but cannot now quantify our future reduced rent if the street stays closed. We feel and state that this letter is our unquantified claim. So that is not in compliance with the requirements of state law to state a written claim for damages. So the council can overrule that claim, and after you close the public hearing, you can then move to the consideration of the resolution on the pedestrian wall.
Okay. Thank you for that. So do we need to do it sounds like we can take the next steps after the public hearing is closed.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Then if that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Chris, I have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Okay, Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay. Before we sort of move on to the next thing, I just wanted to address two things. One, we did look at multiple options around the 700 block, and we have, as a council, voted multiple times to do a complete street closure of the street, dating back to, I guess, 2020, whenever we first closed the street. And so I think we looked at the ability to open it and close it in different times. It's been brought up a number of times, and the council was not in favor of doing that. We did at one point have the 600 block closed, and we did meet, I know that I personally met with a number of the businesses down there, and at that time, the majority were in favor of reopening that because we had fewer restaurants on that block and felt that it was impacting their business. We did allow parklets on that block as a compromise for that, and I think as we look through the long-term downtown strategic plan, we'll look at different options around the 600 and 800 blocks. We've talked about things around widened sidewalks and other areas. So as that comes together, the discussion will still be in place to look at how we provide potentially some more equity around those other two blocks and San Carlos Avenue as well. Okay. With that, it sounds like we don't have, so we have a few action items here. Do any of my colleagues have any comments before we move forward with items 10A through 10D, or C, excuse me. Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to briefly comment that, this is a big action we're taking if we do decide to go ahead this evening. It's not very often a street gets closed in a town to pedestrians. Not always an easy decision. Realize not everyone is in favor of it. I do think the vast majority of our community is in favor of it, so I do intend to support this evening. But I am aware there are, in particular, some retailers who feel like this does not help their business, and I don't feel great about that. But it's, this is one of those for the good of the community. We are intending to invest heavily in this improvement. I think the owners of the buildings there will, by and large, see, increased value to their buildings, and I know the community will appreciate this new space space. So that's really my comment. We, I think are somewhat open as a council if the other blocks in the vicinity, 600, 800, saw the benefits and, had some degree of majority support for closure. I personally would support additional closure downtown. I think this is going to be a tremendous asset for our community, but we've decided on several occasions to start at the 700 block, and that's what I believe we're going to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Dugan. Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll agree with the Vice Mayor. I think that tonight is a transformative moment for San Carlos as we take this important step, hopefully, to establish a pedestrian mall on Laurel Street. As has been said, I think that during the pandemic, many people in our community just fell in love with the look and feel of a pedestrianized block of Laurel Street. And I personally am very proud of the leadership on our council that held tight to this vision for our community. I know that this council and our staff are committed to ensuring that our new downtown plan addresses mobility issues, access for those with disabilities, parking, and support for our small businesses. And I will add that I've traveled all over the country over the last couple of years, and I have seen pedestrian malls in cities throughout the United States, and they are hugely successful. So I'm looking forward to implementing a plan with similar success. I'm also looking forward to upcoming community engagement sessions. There's a virtual workshop on Wednesday, December 6th, and an in-person workshop on Saturday, December 9th at 677 Laurel Street. So I would encourage everyone, we're still in the ideas phase and the planning phase. This is a great time to get involved, make your voice heard in the planning process. You can learn more at sancarlosdowntownplan.com. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McDowell. Okay. And Greg, is this something where we can take all the items one after another? Or
you'll start with the resolution and the introduction of the ordinance at this point. Okay. And the reason I wanted to slightly change the order is because we did receive a late letters that there's a couple of words I want to add to the resolution before you adopt it, and I'll just read that off for you. It's pretty simple. Okay.
I'm going to see. I would like to make a comment first before you do that.
Absolutely.
So, and then I just want to make sure nobody else would like to make a comment on this point. Okay. So I just want to. This has been a long journey for us on this process. And I appreciate the comments by Vice Mayor Dugan. It's not going to be I will be supporting this. It's been not something where everyone will benefit, but we feel like everybody. I do feel this is going to transform our downtown. It's going to turn it into something that will be an attraction that will ultimately help so many businesses. We will be a destination, I think, unlike any other on the peninsula, and we'll bring more businesses, more people here, more businesses, more excitement to our downtown. I was recalling that when I first was elected to City Council in we had our January 2019 strategic retreat, and I brought up the idea of closing Laurel Street. And I never thought at the time that it was going to be something that would be possible. And then the pandemic hit, and we had something that sort of, as awful that it was, gave us this opportunity to experiment and try this out. And it's turned out to be wildly successful. I would say I get 90 to 95% of the emails I've ever gotten on this has been in favor of keeping the street closed and having the pedestrian mall. Understanding, as Councilmember McDowell said, obviously we have some things we have to tweak. We have to look at parking and look at how we make it more accessible, and it's sort of a work in progress. But to get to this point is, for me, really exciting from the standpoint of starting with trying to work with Park and Rec to say, can we do a San Carlos block party one Sunday to see what it was like, to getting to where we are today. So I'm really excited about this and look forward to supporting it and looking forward to the next stage of this process. All right, Greg, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the fifth recital on page 1 of the resolution, I'd like to insert the word sufficient before written objections. And then the next recital, I'd like to put the word valid before, between no and claims in the first few words. And then in paragraph 4 of the resolution on the second page, I'd like to likewise add at number 4, adding the word valid between no and claims on that finding.
Okay, we can say as, and is that, we'll just, can add just as amended to each of the items on this?
My statement would be the suggestion, and you can refer to my proposed amendments, and then we will finalize the resolution consistent with that.
Okay. Then I will call for motion in 1 second. I just also want to thank my council colleagues for their support throughout this process on this. As Councilmember McDowell stated, it was at one point unclear whether we were going to be able to do this, and I appreciate the support from the council to stick with it and see it through. So thank you. All right, I'll call for motion here.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2023-142. A resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos establishing a pedestrian mall on the 700 block of Laurel Street between Cherry and Olive Streets to vehicular traffic under the Pedestrian Mall Law of 1960 with resolutions as amended verbally by our city attorney. I further move to introduce ordinance number...
We're going to do the one at a time.
One at a time, okay.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Christy, I have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to introduce ordinance number
1605.
An ordinance of the City of San Carlos establishing Chapter 12.40 pedestrian malls to Title 12 streets, sidewalks, and public places in the San Carlos Municipal Code. Such, Greg, were there any amendments to the ordinance, or we only amended resolutions?
No, we only amended the resolution.
Okay, got it. That's my movement.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, you have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll?
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0. All right. We'll move on to item 10B, which is consideration of introducing an ordinance amending the San Carlos Municipal Code, Title 18 zoning, section 18.15 general site regulations, 18.21 performance standards, and 18.28 zoning clearance for consistency with the County of San Mateo's comprehensive airport land use compatibility plan for the environs of San Carlos Airport.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Akanksha Chopra, Associate Planner. The item I'll be presenting this evening is the zoning ordinance amendments for compliance with the airport land use compatibility plan for the environs of the San Carlos Airport. On this item, I'm joined virtually by Nicholas Hamilton from Good City Company and Lisa Costa Sanders, who's present with us here in the chamber. As part of the agenda, I'll cover the background, proposed zoning amendments, and next steps. Starting with the background, the state law requires establishment of airport land use commissions for counties with public airports. The airport land use commissions are responsible for development of airport land use compatibility plans, or ALUCPs, for the environs of the airports. For the San Mateo County, CCAG is designated as the Airport Land Use Commission and prepares the ALUCP for the environs of San Carlos Airport. State law requires that cities' general plans, specific plans, and land use regulations must be in compliance with ALUCPs. As the council recalls, the city updated its zoning ordinance as part of housing element update in January of this year. Because these updates included increases to height limits, the city was required to submit these changes to CCAG for consistency review and determination. As part of its review, CCAG requested the city to make amendments to the zoning ordinance that would ensure compliance with the ALUCP. In response to this, city staff proposed amendments that added requirements for ALUCP compliance in several sections of the zoning ordinance. CCAG reviewed these amendments in October and granted the consistency determination for proposed zoning ordinance amendments. This item was presented to the Planning and Transportation Commission on November 6th, and they made a favorable recommendation to the City Council. Next, we have a brief overview of ALUCP. The ALUCP covers 4 key policy areas, including safety, airspace protection, noise, and overflight notification. The policies essentially work to manage safety, health, and quality of life of residents and workers in the environs of the airport. As shown on the map on the screen, the plan is divided into 2 areas. Area A, outlined in red, is where real estate disclosures of being in airport vicinity are required. Entire city of San Carlos is included in this. Area B, outlined in green, is where policies and projects, if required, are reviewed by CCAG for consistency determination. On this slide, we have the overview of zoning ordinance amendments. The main changes to zoning ordinance were made to the section 18.21.150, formerly airspace protection. The amended section is renamed to Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan Consistency and now includes requirements for compliance with ALUCP policies for all projects subject to ALUCP. I'll share the specifics of the amendments on the next slides. Minor changes were made to 3 other sections: general site regulations, noise, and zoning clearance, which refer to the amended section 18.21.150. This slide shares the overview of the amendments to section 18.21.150. The section is amended to refer to requirements contained in ALUCP for compliance with policies related to safety, airspace protection, which also includes FAA requirements, and noise policies of ALUCP for all proposed development projects, alterations, and change of uses subject to ALUCP. Requirement for real estate disclosures by sellers and lessors of real estate property within ALUCP covered area, and the requirement for overflight notification, which essentially states that within the airport influence area B, all new residential projects, excluding additions or ADUs, shall include a recorded overflight notification requirement as part of condition of approval. This won't affect the existing residences in the area. And then there is also a section that shares provision under the state law that gives City Council the authority to override Airport Land Use Commission determinations. After having a consistent zoning ordinance, only proposed land use policy actions go to CCAG board for consistency determination. These include general plan, specific plans, zoning ordinance, or plan developments. As per procedure established under the ALUCP, all land use policy actions first go to CCAG for consistency determination and then come to Planning Commission and the City Council. Should the City Council introduce the proposed ordinance tonight, staff will come back to the Council for a second reading on December 11, 2023. After the second reading, the ordinance will become effective on January 10th, 2024. For Council's information, staff published a public notice for this item and no public comments were received. The motion is on the screen should Council decide to move forward. I'm joined again by Lisa Costa-Sanders and Nicholas Hamilton to answer any questions Council members may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Agnieszka. Do any of my colleagues have any comments on this item, or questions, I should say? Okay, I just will add that on the real estate disclosure, I was serving on this special committee for the ALUCP as we looked at that, and I know Lisa Coster-Sanders was on some of those meetings with me, and I had originally some concerns about the impact in terms of the burden on staff to do this, to have the real estate disclosure for the entire, basically the entire city, in terms of the impact on that. But after number of discussions and meetings, I sort of supported the measure to move forward with including the real estate disclosure after getting, understanding this would not severely impact staff time in terms of the impact moving forward. So I just want to put a little color on that. At the time was certainly something that we were part of the discussion on getting to this point today, and all these all these updates as part of that process. So thank you. That was before I handed that off to you. See, I did all the work. We got that done. Then you just get to deal with building heights, which are no fun either. So, all right. Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the overview. And I know, this seems like a routine item, but a lot of work went into it, no doubt, and analysis. I just, kind of a broad question for the community's benefit mostly. Are these changes, by and large, they're just conforming changes given all the recent changes we've made to our zoning? Are there any new additional restrictions or things our property owners should be concerned about?
There are no new restrictions. The whole exercise is ensuring that we comply with the ALUCP, and it embeds the requirements of compliance within the zoning ordinance. And I'm not aware of any new restrictions. I'll invite Lisa Coster-Sanders if they would like to add anything to this.
Sure. It actually streamlines the review process for many projects. For example, since we were not in compliance, 11 El Camino, which was a project that conformed to the underlying new zoning, had to go through the ALUCP review. Now that once this new regulation, conforming ordinance has been adopted, those types of projects will no longer need to go through the review. So it is a benefit in that sense. Any change to zoning, like the planned development projects, they will still need to go through the same review.
Got it. But projects conforming to our zoning are now, by definition, conforming to these policies.
Yeah, well, staff will need to confirm the conformance. It will no longer need to go through the ALUCP review process, though.
Okay,
yes,
great.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands. Is there any public comment on this item?
I do not have any slips for this item.
Okay. With that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Collins.
I'll
Always
second
staying
that.
on top of me. All right, we have a motion and a second. Did you have? Nope. Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Collins.
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yes.
And Mayor Rack.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. Any final comments from council? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to introduce ordinance number
1606.
1606, an ordinance of the City of San Carlos amending the San Carlos Municipal Code Title 18 zoning, sections 18.15, general site regulations, 18.21, performance standards, and 18.28, zoning clearance for consistency with the County of San Mateo's comprehensive airport land use compatibility plan for the environs of San Carlos Airport.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Collins.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember McDowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh.
Yes.
And Mayor Rack.
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0. All right, we are moving on to 10C, which is our last item. I know we've only been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Is everybody, this might take a little bit of time. Is everyone okay? Do they want to take a couple-minute break before we get to this? Okay, we'll take let's just do a 5-minute break. Okay. Everybody ready? We're ready. You ready? Okay, I am going to reconvene the meeting. And we'll move on to item, oh my gosh, see, did I do that? And 10C, which is consideration of the following actions for the Indigo Hotel project at 501 Industrial Road. 1, adopt a resolution certifying the final environmental impact report, adopting the California Environmental Quality Act finding of fact, and approving the associated mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program. Introducing an ordinance amending the zoning map to change the zoning of the site from LC Landmark Commercial Zoning District to PD Planned Development Zoning District, and approving the associated planned development plan. And 3, introducing an ordinance approving a development agreement with Holly Hotel Group, LLC. Okay, Lisa Costa-Sanders.
Thank you. Good evening. This is the last project I'm bringing forward to the City Council this year. There, I was able to say it.
It's been a busy year.
Not the last meeting of the year, but the last project. How's that? So I'll give a project overview. We have Jim Simon with RSG to discuss the community benefits. Steve Nowak from PlaceWorks will discuss CEQA. We've prepared an EIR for this project. And then we have Mark Spencer from W-Trans to discuss the traffic. We did the CEQA required analysis as well as a full traffic study. And then the applicant, EC Liu, will give a presentation, and he has members of his team here as well. So the project site is located at the southeast corner of Industrial Road and Holly Street. The property is just over, that's a typo, 2 acres in area and currently vacant. The site is zoned landmark commercial with gateway overlay and a general plan designation of planned industrial. And the site has been identified by the city for a landmark hotel since adoption of the East Side Specific Plan back in 1991. The applicant proposes to develop a new boutique hotel with 188 guest rooms, 2 meeting rooms, a restaurant, surface parking lot, and landscape improvements. The items before the City Council tonight include certification of the environmental impact report, approval of the planned development zoning and planned development plan, as well as the development agreement. At its November 6, 2023 meeting, the Planning and Transportation Commission approved the design review and transportation demand management plan, subject to the effective date of the planned development zoning. This is the site plan. You see Industrial Road on the left of the screen, Holly Street at the top, and then to the right would be US 101. So there's 1 point of ingress and egress proposed to the site, and that's at the southernmost point of the property. The surface parking lot allows the fire apparatus vehicles to access the site all the way around the building. Left turns out of the driveway would be prohibited, but left turns in would be allowed. The future roadway improvements at Holly Street and Industrial Road have been accommodated for with this site plan, and the city has already acquired the necessary property from this site. There are 148 proposed on-site parking spaces, 20 short-term bicycle, and 12 long-term bicycle spaces. So the items requested for the planned development zoning relate to an increase in height. The height of the underlying zoning district is 50 feet, and the request is to allow the building at a maximum height of 74 feet 4 inches to the top of the parapet and 81 feet 8 inches to a decorative tower, to allow an increase in signage up to 260 square feet and also allow rooftop signage. Also for parking, the code prohibits parking within 40 feet of a street-facing property line, and this site plan does include parking within 29 feet from the property line, but there is a landscape hedge to screen that view of the parking. Also a reduction in the parking to allow 148 on-site parking spaces, and this reduction is supported by the Transportation Demand Management Plan as well as a parking study that was completed. Reduction in landscaping to allow 12.5% of the site to be landscaped. The standard landscape requirement is 15%, and as you saw from that required fire apparatus around the entire building, it does limit the opportunity for landscaping on the site. Planning Commission did approve the design review certificate. As you see from this is a view pretty much at Holly Street, and here you see the view of the 6-story main guest room wing, and then it steps down to a 3-story wing along Industrial Road. It's designed with contemporary architecture, a decorative roof element that will include solar panels, and as I indicated, parking will be screened from view. A view from Industrial Road. You'll see the lower three-story portion of the building here. This actually does comply with the 50-foot height limit at this section. The applicant will plant large evergreen trees along the property frontage and that lower level hedge. Oops, sorry. Just another view pulling back a little bit from Holly Street at Industrial. You can really see the taller element and then that step down. And then this is if you're traveling northbound on Industrial Road, you'll see the Residence Inn, and then beyond that, the proposed new hotel. And then a view from the residential neighborhood at Bayport Court. The site plan does include landscaping along the perimeter of the site and a central courtyard that would be accessed from the building lobby as well as the restaurant area. Planning Commission also approved the Transportation Demand Management Plan. The TDM plan anticipates at least a 20% reduction in trips based on the measures listed here, and the effectiveness of the program is required to be monitored. The site is a 4/10 mile walking distance to the train station, which equates to about an 8-minute walk or a 3-minute bike ride. And now Jim Simon will give an overview on the development agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So the development agreement provides a 8-year commitment by the city to the project. The benefits that are provided include guarantee of the type of hotel that this is typed to be. Specifically, it would not be an extended stay hotel, which would allow for accommodations longer than 30 days. It's what's called an upper upscale hotel, so it would be, you know, full service restaurant. Pretty rare to see those getting constructed these days. And it would have also an event and space that could be used by nonprofit organizations twice a month for a total of 12 hours every single month for a period of 15 years. So that would be provided at no cost to those organizations. In addition, you know, I think it, you know, for the public, the hotels are a very lucrative investment, or lucrative for the cities that have those in their jurisdiction. You would be generating about $3 million a year. Put that in context, if it was just the property tax alone for an $80 million hotel project like this, that'd be about $150,000 a year in property tax revenues, $3 million though in hotel taxes. So quite a bit more just because of the fact that it's a hotel. In addition, the city will collect linkage fees when they are due. That includes $1.2 million of commercial linkage fees that will be used for affordable housing, sewer fees of about $2.2 million, traffic impact and child care fees totaling to $4.4 million in total. I'll turn over to our CEQA consultant.
Good evening. My name is Steve Nowak. I'm a principal with PlaceWorks. I'll just do a quick couple of slides on the EIR. The key issues that we found with potential to have impacts were all fully mitigated through either conformance with existing regulations or specific mitigation measures. So we were able to look at everything, including key areas, air quality, noise, transportation. Those are really the key ones, and found that we were able to mitigate all impacts to less than significant level. Oops. And just a quick overview, the draft EIR were circulated in the fall of this year. The Planning Commission, Transportation Commission held a hearing in August to receive comments on the EIR. We prepared a response to comments document and took it back to the Planning Commission for their review. You know, so we've gone through that process. We developed the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan, which is part of your resolution, which guarantees that all the mitigation measures will be adhered to during the course of construction and operation of the project.
And just a few slides on the transportation analysis. As part of this effort, a transportation impact study was prepared to evaluate safety and potential impacts to nearby intersections. There's actually separate traffic studies. One is related to CEQA and environmental impact, specifically as defined by CEQA. The other was traffic operations, intersections, delay, things like that, that used to be part of CEQA. Now we consider those non-CEQA, but they are traffic operational items so that we still know how to manage the streets and the nearby circulation network. Both of those went through city review process. The environmental study did not identify any significant impacts with the proposed development. That's not to say there won't be more traffic or that circulation has to be analyzed and addressed, but it does not meet the threshold of significant impact. Left turns out of the site are going to be prohibited. That's actually a big component. Remember, we have frontage on industrial roads, so the access, making sure that vehicles can safely move in and out of the site. There is a left turn in. That would be a new left turn pocket that would be created kind of back to back. And there's a diagram on the next slide that'll show that with the northbound. So what you see here on this diagram, on the bottom of the slide, you'll see 3 blue rectangles. If you imagine those 3 cars traveling southbound on Industrial Road, that would be the new left turn pocket. It's about 75 feet in length, turning left into the site at the access driveway. The 7 blue rectangles on the top, those are vehicles traveling northbound in the left turn lane from Industrial Road, turning left onto Holly Street towards town. You'll also notice this also includes the traffic impact fee improvements, which is the additional through lane on Industrial Road and the land that's needed to accommodate that on Industrial coming from the project site frontage. So this is an important distinction of the change that's going to happen on Industrial Road in order to accommodate this. With this and the sizing of these, vehicle backups are not projected. These are sized to accommodate the demand for the hotel as well as the future northbound demand for left turns from Industrial onto Holly Street. So this is a very important distinction and probably the biggest change in terms of traffic that we'll see in that area. Whoops. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Lisa.
Thank you. So the public notice was mailed to all property owners and occupants within 300 feet of the site and published in the newspaper on November 16th. We have received 1 comment letter from representing the GESC expressing concern with traffic. The applicant did conduct several outreach meetings with the GESC members as well. So the Planning and Transportation Commission does recommend that the City Council certify the final EIR and approve the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan, adopt the ordinance rezoning the site to plan development and the associated plan development plan, and adopt the ordinance approving the development agreement. I would like to note that we have made some minor changes to the development agreement, and you have copies of those in front of you, and we also have copies available for the public in the back as well. And that concludes staff's presentation. We can answer questions now, or you can hear the applicant's presentation and we can answer questions whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I think let's hear from the applicant and then we can ask questions.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Isi Liu with Holly Hotel Group. We own the site at 501 Industrial Road. Bob Silverjo is the architect in charge, and he'll be making the majority of the presentation. But I just want to give a general sense of our vision for this particular project. Our partners has owned the site for 25 years, and you may remember they operated Bayshore Supply out of this site. A few years back, they bought another site in San Carlos on Burton Avenue, where they now operate Bayshore Supplies. We did not want to do another cookie-cutter hotel. We wanted to do a boutique hotel, meaning a very design-forward hotel, which would be an attraction for both the city and also for the region. And as such, I'm going to try. We chose the brand called Hotel Indigo. It's owned by Intercontinental Hotel Group, which is the world's second largest hotel group after Marriott. And for Hotel Indigo, each design, each hotel has to be localized. So there's no uniform furniture plan or furniture. So we have to design it individually. And we have to come up with a storyline for each Hotel Indigo. And we went into, so we came up with City of Good Living, of course, technology roots, dreamers and doers. And we looked at the history of San Carlos. In fact, counter to the name of Industrial Road, actually there's a lot of technological innovations done by companies based out of San Carlos, including Hillier helicopter, IMAC vacuum tubes, Ampex multi-track recording, which revolutionized music recording. And we took that and then basically used those points to design the interior and the furniture. And another point about Hotel Indigo is that we have to be very local in our food and beverage offerings. So we're working with local restaurateurs and wine and beer purveyors for our food and beverage program. So just on some furniture plan for the ground floor, you'll see on the bottom the boardroom, and that's one of the spaces, meeting spaces, that would be offered gratis to San Carlos County nonprofits. But you'll see that basically the lobby is a very active bar and restaurant, and it flows very freely into the outdoor garden. Here are some indicative images for the lobby and lobby restaurant. The boardroom imagery. And then moving on to the second floor, where you see the banquet tables, that's the event meeting space. That space also would be available gratis to nonprofits in the county of San Carlos. And it actually flows out onto the terrace, and Bob will go into it in greater detail. We will be designing and also manufacturing this furniture on our own for this hotel specifically. So it's very labor intensive, but we hope that ultimately that makes our hotel not a commodity product, but something that people would want to come to. The other thing about the food and beverage forward program that we will have, we're hoping to also create a new nexus for that in East San Carlos, so that neighbors in East San Carlos and also commercial neighbors in the biotech offices can come to our hotel and enjoy food and beverage instead of having to travel west across town to Laurel. Some imagery for the meeting rooms, guest rooms. Lisa mentioned about community engagement. We did have a Zoom meeting all the way back in February 2022. And we've been having constant dialogue with GSC. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bob Silverjo of RYS Architects.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Bob Silverjo, principal at RYS Architects. Very pleased to be presenting this project. So the project, we're bounded by Industrial Road on the on the west, Holly on the north, and 101 on the east. We recognize that this is a landmark and gateway parcel, and we knew it needed to be special to welcome the community into the city of San Carlos and provide a statement. Let's see, forward is, let me make sure I got this one, yeah. So the overall shape of the building, the curved 6-story wing reflects the curve of the parcel and also the on-ramp onto 101, plus you see on the lower image, just kind of curving up to the left is the new proposed bike and pedestrian overpass to 101. So that was a big determinant in the shape of the hotel. And you can see that it steps down on the right to Industrial Road, where we got the residential neighbors to the west. So the main 6-story wing, which is the curved part on the lower right, you'll see that we've got parking at the ground level underneath. And that also kind of curves around, and it created this very nice internal courtyard, and just the building itself helps kind of shield the impact of 101. So the shape of the building in this V shape created a very nice opportunity for that courtyard. As EC already mentioned, we've got the entrance to the hotel there on the left, and it's very deliberate. That whole lobby restaurant space is transparent through to the courtyard. And the second floor space that you saw on a previous slide is connected to the ground floor by a bank of elevators, but then there's also a breakout space in that green on the lower right, a terrace that overlooks the courtyard down below that's connected with a stairway, that direct connection to that courtyard. And in this slide, on the top, you'll see that the building steps down. The white sections are the cutaway, and the sight line to the residential uses to the west. Also part of the design team is Tom Holloway with KLA Landscape Architects. And he's connecting via Zoom. And at this point, I'll like Tom to join if he can be connected.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, well, welcome to my garage. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to the project. I don't see the screen anymore, but that's okay. So Bob, are we looking at the two images of the end of the hotel?
At this point, we're looking at the cross section, the image with the cross section of the hotel on the top, and the site plan on the bottom.
Awesome, thank you. Well, on this page, I think Bob alluded to this. This is a really good example of showing how the building is stepped so that as we get closer to the residential neighborhood, the building drops down to a much lower level than that larger 6-story component. Moving on to the next slide, please. I think here too, we see how the scale of the architecture drops down as it gets closer to Industrial Boulevard. We've got the plant material, the hedge, the street trees, really create a nice, comfortable setting for people walking along the street, and of course the adjacency to the residences on the west side. It's really meant to create layering from industrial into the hotel, and to obviously create an inviting atmosphere for guests as they come in, but also to fit within the fabric of the community. This photo at the top shows, as part of the design, we do have a gateway element that we're working with the city on as part of the gateway project to incorporate this into this whole gateway specific plan. So that we have incorporated a relatively decent sized landscape area there at the corner for that treatment. Next slide, please, Bob. The bottom slide is an elevation showing what the hotel looks like standing on the other side of industrial, looking towards it. And again, you can see that layering and that stepping that takes place, as well as the upper right shows that as well. Once we move into the site, you can see that the landscape really is important, and it's intermixed with the parking. Instead of a sea of parking, we've got a lot of finger planters, trees, vertical landscape element on walls around the site. The courtyard is in the middle of this piece that the upper left that we're looking at, and that's really the jewel of the project, is that courtyard space. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But the next slide, please, Bob. These images then show how the hotel sits. These are photo simulations. We went out to the site, took photos from different areas around, and then scaled in our model of the hotel into the existing photos. So the upper left is the off-ramp, southbound 101. So you can see that curved element of the building and how inviting that is, and really creates a statement for San Carlos. The picture down below it is a little bit closer as you're getting in towards industrial. Then the one below that at the lower left is on the other side, the south side of industrial, looking north. And you can see that it really is not out of scale, especially when you look to the image to the upper right, where you see it in relationship to the existing hotel that's on industrial already. Our building really is kind of the same scale and the same massing, and fits very nicely within the space. And the bottom image, the bottom right, is from the residential neighborhood to the west, looking down the street. And again, you can see that layering, the way everything steps back. It really fits nicely within the community. Next slide, please, Bob. And then the exciting part, the courtyard piece in the middle, really is kind of the focus of the hotel. The lobby, as soon as you enter in, you look straight through the lobby out into the courtyard space. The curved wing of the hotel protects it from any noise from the freeway. It's really an extension of the lobby space and meant to be enjoyed by guests and anyone that's using the hotel. The food and beverage spills out into that space. You'll notice we don't have a swimming pool here. So really, this is an upscale hotel that's meant for the business traveler. It's intended to create an atmosphere that we really don't see at most of the hotels along the peninsula. Just really an exciting space for the inside-outside uses. Next slide, please, Bob. These images are showing what it looks like inside the courtyard. You'll notice along this image at the upper left, we're actually making the landscape more vertical. We're putting landscape elements on the wall at the base of the building. This is the 6-story component, and we've got the parking underneath. So we're accentuating. We don't have a lot of landscape, but where we do it, we're really making it a key element in within the courtyard space, especially, but really all the way around the hotel. You're completely enclosed within landscape spaces. Next, please, Bob. More images from within the courtyard space. You can see it's just really nice, relaxing, multifunction, just an awesome place to hang out. I did want to point out, I think Lisa had mentioned that we were like 12.5% landscape. We have come back and recalculated a few things. And when we did our original calculations, we forgot to include some of the rooftop stormwater treatment planter spaces that we have. And by the time you add it all up and kind of get all of this together, we're more like 14.5%. So we're still a little bit under the 15, but we're much, much closer than just 12.5%. And again, no kind of just fill it in landscape space. Everything around here is very important, filled in, and a critical component of the hotel experience.
I would like to point out that lower left where you see kind of that vertical wall with landscape. We'll have another slide later. If you include all of those, including this vertical, well, actually, I think we ended up right at 15%.
Right, exactly, yeah. I think the next slide is the civil engineer's plan that shows where the stormwater treatment areas are. Those have been I never can say this word, really incorporated within the landscape space. So really, when you're walking around the site, you don't recognize the stormwater treatment planters. We've really tried to blur those edges so that it just looks like it's part of the rest of the landscape. But we have met all of the requirements for the stormwater treatment, storage, cleaning it. There are the red lines that you see here are underground storage pipes for any excess during a storm event. And this has all gone through the city as we've gone through the preliminary process, and we are meeting all the requirements on that. Bob, I think that's it for my presentation.
I think so. So the next slide, parking reduction. We've got a 22% reduction in required parking spaces. A TDM plan was prepared. And this lists some of the strategies. I think Lisa had this in part of the staff presentation. strategies that were part of that plan to achieve that. Agency approvals and reviews. We did have a fire department approval. We have a single means of access to this site. So to get our fire department approval for that single access, one of the things that we're doing is we're providing electrically driven fire pumps for automatic standpipes throughout the site. We have Regional Water Board determination letter. We also got Federal Aviation Administration letter for determination of no hazard air navigation. And we have submitted our trash enclosure and amount of trash to Recology, and we have their approval. Actually, I think this, yeah, so this left turn lane was already explained by the city's traffic consultant. But this is, yeah, this was the follow-up where when you include all the areas, including some of that vertical landscaping in that courtyard, we actually achieve 15.07% of landscape. And just informational only, just we looked at heights of other developments in the area to compare to ours. So available for questions. I want to just also say that also available, connecting by Zoom, Kenya Alfaro, project manager working with me on this, an architect at RYS, is available. We've got Kay Ling from Hexagon Transportation and Frank Poss with Intertech available for questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Do any of my colleagues have questions? Give people a second to, okay. Councilmember Venkatesh, then Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the thought that went into this and the community outreach, and I appreciate the event space because we are lacking event space in our city. But I just had a few questions. One is the ride matching service. Can you just explain a little bit about that?
The ride matching service. I think I'll defer to Kay Ling with Hexagon for that.
Okay, you should be able to unmute on your own.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Good evening. This is Kylie from Hexagon Transportation. So the TDM plan, TDM measures one of that is ride matching, and ride matching is for the hotel managers to match their employee to see based on where they live if they can like carpool to the office together, to the hotel together, or they can use the 501 the commute program that the CCAT community commute program. They can match if the employee register to that service, they can find people if on their route to work, then they can carpool to the office, to the hotel.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like to have Mark Spencer also respond to that question. Thank you.
Just a bit more on the ride matching. The applicant's transportation consultant, Hexagon, did a real nice job preparing what's called a Transportation Demand Management Plan, or TDM plan. It's basically a plan to reduce the number of single occupant trips that access a site. It includes many different things in terms of encouragement for transit and carpooling. The ride matching is basically carpool matching for employees. That's run through commute.org here in the county. But there's a number of measures in there that overall would achieve at least a 20% reduction in trips. And I think some of the strategies are listed on this board right here in front of you right now. And we did a peer review of that study, and that's included in our analysis that we provided for the city.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just two more questions. I'm sure they're on here, I just didn't see them. Are there EV chargers on the property?
Yes, we have EV charging, and that's in compliance with state regulations now that keep increasing with probably every code cycle, but we are in compliance, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, so there's 2 left-hand turns to get in. Once you're in, how do you get out?
Well, the parking circulation goes completely around the hotel.
Okay.
So you can actually, once you're on the site, you can go clockwise or counterclockwise.
Thank you, that was my questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Venkatesh, Councilmember Collins, and then Vice Mayor Dugan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, everyone, for your presentation and all of the illustrations. They've been most helpful. Just a couple quick questions. I want to follow up on that EV charging question. You said there will be EV chargers. Do you have an idea how many?
Kenya has the plans available, and I can't remember off the top of my head, or if staff knows, if you've got that. No, okay. But there's the current regulations, we have to provide certain amount of charging stations, and then there's also 8. Thanks, Lisa. So there's 8 charging stations currently.
All right, that's about 6 more than some of the hotels I've been to recently, so that's encouraging to hear. My other concern is about that southbound left-hand turn lane on Industrial. That seems a little close to the next project, to the Renaissance Hotel there. What's the distance from that to that signal there? You have an idea? I noticed it was like 300 feet south of the intersection, if my math is right.
I don't know why it is on the present. If I start flipping this thing, where?
Go forward.
Yeah, there's one slide there that shows the street configuration.
I have no idea.
There it is.
That's as close as we're going to get. What we did look at, I don't recall the distance between the driveway and the next intersection down, which is East San Carlos. And that's where the access is to the Renaissance Hotel.
We've measured that to be about 360 feet.
From
the edge of this property to the corner of the Residence Inn.
Of
driveway.
About another 300 feet. Okay, so
360 feet.
360 feet.
Yeah, there's a whole other property there that's in that frontage.
Oh, there's a property between the two of them.
Yeah,
oh,
the
yes.
Bakers Union.
Yes,
Yes,
the Bakers
yes, there we
Union.
are.
Of course, how could I forget that? Okay, my only concern is about the safety there. You've got oncoming traffic that's starting up from a stop sign and that sort of thing. I assume that's been looked at, studied. What's the conclusion?
Adding this driveway on Industrial will work, particularly because there's no left turn out. Everything leaving this driveway is going to be turning towards Holly. Right, so that has a lot to do with the circulation. It kind of maintains the traffic flow on Industrial Road. Having the 75-foot turn pocket, which is about 3 to 4 car lengths that can accommodate that, will be sufficient to service the hotel. In addition to having those back-to-back, as I showed earlier with my diagram, with what can turn on northbound Industrial onto Holly. And there's a pretty good spacing, as Lisa just mentioned, between this driveway and down to East San Carlos. So there's a lot of activity on Industrial Road. Industrial Road is growing with traffic. We've all experienced that. Okay, so in order to not make that worse, and to accommodate this particular development, one of the good things, if you want to call it, good traffic, and that's kind of sometimes a misnomer in what I do for a living. But you have a hotel, and a hotel is a good complementary use to everything else we're seeing in East San Carlos. We're seeing a lot of life science, we're seeing a lot of that kind of business activity. So a hotel can support that and shorten trip lengths and keep traffic more localized versus people having to go further away. So the circulation for this type of hotel works a little bit differently. Yes, it's right next to the interchange. It's going to be drawing a lot. It's also going to be sort of an airport serving hotel for businesses. But from a traffic perspective, it's a pretty good complementary use in terms of what could be going there in terms of just different land uses. So it does work pretty well from a circulation perspective.
I see that the road expands northbound after that, which is good.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, I mean, this is a completely separate subject as to whether or not we ought to think about looking at the speed limits along there, allowable speed limits, once this project is going, because, I think it's probably 35 right now. I don't know if it should be 30 or what. I just, with oncoming traffic, these cars are going to have to be careful. But maybe it just occurred to me that with a light there, the light, that's going to break up the traffic, correct? Lisa, is that what you were going to say?
Yeah. The light creates gaps in the traffic flow that help to ameliorate the effect that you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. My last question is, assuming approvals tonight, what is the construction timeline?
I was going to say the same, about 18 months. Compared to other hotels we're doing and the size of this one, approximately 18 months. Right. I would like to make just one slight clarification. The driveway location that we have is the existing location of the driveway going into the Bayshore Supply.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a new driveway, it's the existing driveway.
Okay. And people used to take a left-hand turn into there before. Okay. So the construction timeline of 18 months, what's the begin date are you anticipating? Groundbreaking date?
Yeah, with that, we still have to go through construction documents, which is a pretty lengthy process. This is a big hotel, and through the plan check process, that could be 8 to 12 months. It just depends on how many cycles of plan check we have. So
I just wanted to get a general estimate.
If EC tells me to start tomorrow morning, that's your timeline.
just curious as to when you were thinking of starting construction. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Okay, Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you. I think my first question's for staff, yeah, I mean, this is a strong development for San Carlos. I do appreciate the handsome upscale design, and that this will be our front door for all essential purposes, and it is a nice use complementing our growing life science center. What I caught, I think it might have been in your presentation, an 8-year development agreement. I mean, I think planned development is, that's an exception to zoning. It runs with the land, goes forever. So what does it mean to say an 8-year development agreement?
Well, I think in this case, the 8 years is what the city's agreed to keep our current zoning in place for them, and the requirements that we're putting in, so we won't change anything during that time, like our impact fees and things of that nature. After that, if they haven't built the hotel, then they, correct me if I'm wrong, they'd have to pay whatever the current fees and charges and requirements that would exist at that time.
Oh, I see. So it's they basically have 8 years to complete the project from our side, but everything they've agreed to is memorialized in their planned development and runs with the land?
Correct, but there's some of the requirements have expirations on them, like the use of the conference facilities by nonprofits.
Yeah, got it. But that will be in an agreement that goes, indefinitely. Okay, thank you, that helped. And then the upper scale hotel, is that a measurable standard? I mean, is that subjective? I've never heard that term of art before, and how enforceable is that,
Yeah, I mean, there's an industry classification known as Smith Travel Research, or STR, that basically sets classifications of hotels. there's probably 6 classifications, and upper upscale is what you're looking at on the screen. It's usually a full-service hotel with a food and restaurant, kind of bar in the operation, as opposed to, say, like a Residence Inn next door, which is an extended stay with just, breakfast, something like that. So the distinction is that, plus then the amenities of all the, event space and meeting space. That's what creates the.
And that's part of the planned development agreement. So if an operator wanted to downshift and close the restaurant and all that, we could say they're no longer in compliance with the PD and, lean on them.
That's what we would be doing in that hypothetical situation, yes.
Okay. That's sure. Yeah.
It's also franchised with IHG, so they can't stop that as long as they're licensed to IHG. So there's one more level to keep it operating at that high level.
Yeah, and I have no doubt an investment like this is, going to be respected for a long time by whomever made that investment. But, just thinking what happens in 50 years or, what have you. So, got it. And perhaps this is a question for the architect. I'm not sure. I want to understand this bike path. I know we've got this overpass, that we've been trying to accomplish as a city for some time with some intermittent setbacks. But I'm seeing like a rotary and like a flyover bike path, and where's the other tail go? And I'm just, if there's one of these slides, I think it might have been the civil engineering slide, or the structural engineering slide seemed to show it the most. If anyone can explain it to me, and maybe it's unknowable because we haven't really figured out that overpass yet. I don't know, but just wondering what it's going to be when you guys get done with construction, and what is it anticipating?
Right, and I wish I could remember, because at the beginning when we were getting the civil, surveys and everything, we were given plans, and I think it's Caltrans project, but county.
Yeah.
So we were given access to the proposed, engineering plans for that. So what we have on our site plan is
Could we pull up the site plan, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think, John, if I should say Vice President, I think if I recall correctly, that is intended to go through the Residence Inn and then behind.
Okay.
So it's to go up East San Carlos Avenue and then connect in behind and go over the freeway.
Oh, right.
I think that's, Al might know about that, or Al's shaking his head that yes, that's the intention around it.
This is a decent view. There was a little bit better view. So what I saw was, if you took this rotary, then you ended up going up the overpass and crossing actually over this bottom bike path that we still see. And so I didn't know where that bottom bike path would be going still. And anyway, maybe just to the Residence Inn.
It actually connects a lot further than that. So if we don't have it with us tonight, but if you look at the Bay Trail system and what's happening all along the shorefront and all the way down towards Redwood City, you can start connecting. And similar to the overpass that we see just a little north in Belmont, we would have an overcrossing of 101 here too, to make sure that the separated bike path can stay on the Bay Trail side. And ultimately, there's going to be really nice connectivity between the Dumbarton Bridge and the San Mateo Bridge. And this is a key piece of that that's being put in place, separate from this project, but the project had to respect the boundaries of that.
Got it. But so, that rotary has a spur that's leading off to the overpass, and I understand that. But then the other bike path is intended to connect all the way down on the west side of 101. That's a heck of a lot of easements that don't exist.
Yes, there's a lot of missing links, but there's also a lot of, in the city's bike plan as well as CCAG's bike plan, and you look at the regional bike plan, all of these pieces are starting to come together.
Okay.
It's all in segments.
Because, there is that bike path on the other side of 101 that's already there, but that's what's foreseen as kind of an equivalent bike path on our side of 101?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. And then, given that none of that is here now, will this be constructed as part of this project and just like a path to nowhere for a bit, or?
It's irrespective of this project, I believe. This project doesn't have responsibility for it, as far as I know.
Oh, okay. So this is outside of.
Just showing it and respecting its boundaries to show that this is what's coming and it's an amenity that is planned.
Okay. Somehow I was perceiving this as donated by the project, if you will, or as part of the development. So this is outside of their boundary. Okay. That's an answer. And then the final question, it's a TDM question. So the no left turn out of the site, I get that. It'd be hard to make a left turn, but how do we think about the additional impacts on our pretty impacted industrial Holly of, because this hotel is presumably situated at least in part to service the Life Science Center, which is all a left turn. It seems to be a lot to ask of a hotel patron to know how to take the on-ramp on 101 down to Britain to get down there. That would be the nice way to go, but I'm not even sure Google would direct that. Probably would, but anyway, how did that factor into the analysis? And my worry is there isn't even a U-turn available at Holly and Industrial, so we're sort of sending people on a journey, perhaps.
Yeah, and what we looked at is where are the patrons coming from? Where are the people who are going to be staying in the hotel? And for the most part, there's a bias towards trips from the north. The airport, 101 north, El Camino north, Old County Road to the north, and about a third of them may be coming from the south. In order to return back south, when you're leaving the site, with that left turn restriction, that means you're making a right turn. You're correct, there's no U-turns allowed. So you can't just make a right turn and go up to Holly and then, do a UE and come back. So you have two choices. You're going to turn right or left. You can go to 101 and head south, and ultimately if your trip is further south than Britain or someplace, then you're just going to keep going south. If you are heading to something, one of the life science centers or something in East San Carlos in the Innovation District, you're going to make a left and probably make a left on Old County Road and come back down into the area that way. And that's what we had assumed in the traffic analysis in terms of routing and potential for what might happen.
Okay. It's, I don't see any other idea there, but I just.
Here it is, but on the other hand, the alternative, if we had allowed left turns out to go across Industrial Road, would be more problematic from a traffic safety circulation perspective.
I agree with that. I guess I do hope Google routes people down the 101 because that's a clean way to get down to Britain. But
I ask that you don't bait me on what Waze does to traffic and get into that because I don't want to extend this further than we need to. Discussion.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember McDowell, Councilmember Collins had a quick follow-up before you go, if that's okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just putting on my council historian hat once again. With regard to the bike path, and I'm glad there's a lot of staff here who will obviously or hopefully help me with my memory, but when we were considering the reconfiguration of the Holly Street overpass, there was at one time a plan to construct the new overpass and have the bike pedestrian overpass situated as far enough south of the interchange so that it went over approximately where the end of East San Carlos Avenue was by the Renaissance Hotel. Then what happened after that was that the plans, the design plans got changed to incorporate the bike path within the revised or reconstructed Holly Street overpass. So now it will be part of that, and so you're right, having a bike path, it would be a bike path to nowhere because there's, that plan has been scrapped to put the overpass that far south of the interchange. If I've misstated anything, any part of that, Greg or Lisa or Steve or whoever, or even Al, let me know.
And thank you, Ron. I do appreciate that. I thought this bike path construction was part of the public benefit on this property. It's not even in scope of the property, so it's not going to be built until it makes sense to be built. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Collins. Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it's all right, I have 3 questions kind of around community benefits, and then I'll defer my time, and then I have 3 questions about traffic impact. So I'll break it up into 2 sections. So thank you all for the presentation and information. My first question is in regards to the boardroom and the ballroom. The language in the development agreement says, subject to availability, the hotel operator shall be required to accept reservation requests a maximum of 90 days in advance of the desired event date. And I looked at I appreciated the renderings because I was wondering how big the ballroom is, and it's actually large. If the tables, I'm looking at slide 9, there's 17 tables of 10 people, so that's 170 people. So potentially a large event could be held there. And I'm thinking that, you know, large events, people start planning for a year in advance, certainly more than 90 days in advance. So I'm wondering if there's flexibility there with the booking of the reservations.
And thank you for providing that question ahead of time. We were able to discuss it with the developer further, and they've agreed to extend the 90 days to 120 days.
Thank you. So that's 4 months in advance. I guess my question is, if I'm hosting my wedding reception and I want to book that room, how far in advance can a private citizen book the ballroom?
I'll defer to the developer.
Thank you.
We don't have, you know, those guidelines set yet. Once we have a sales department, we'll be discussing that. I guess from our perspective is we definitely welcome the nonprofits in booking the boardroom and the conference space. We also would like to get more revenue generating business as well, which will also then generate food and beverage business and maybe room occupancy business, which adds to temporary occupancy tax for the city. And they also they would require, yes, quite a bit of time in advance as well. So I think right now we feel comfortable with, I talked to Lisa today and we talked internally with 120 days, 4 months in advance. So that's what we feel comfortable with at this point.
Okay, thank you. And I do really appreciate these spaces. I don't know how familiar you are with, you know, our nonprofits, but we have a school nonprofit that books its gala every year. We have Healthy Cities Tutoring that books its annual fundraiser. There's several large nonprofits that do a lot of counseling. One Life Counseling Center does an annual gala. So I do see a lot of value in, you know, offering these spaces, and I'm sure they're going to be beautiful and they're going to be popular. I'm sure you will have plenty of business with receptions and all hands meetings that, you know, I'm sure companies would like to book. I think the terrace is beautiful. But I personally don't find 4 months for planning purposes, you know, when you're sending out invitations and things like that, you need to book it much sooner in advance. You need more lead time. So I'm going to defer to my colleagues, but, you know, I'd like to consider, you know, if you don't want to do it for all of the events, would you be open to, you know, half of the events being able to book a year, 10 months in advance? I think, you know, this is going to be a sticking point for me because I don't want to have hollow offers. I think that we are giving a lot in, you know, height and parking and, you know, various things. And so I want to make sure that the community benefits that our community is receiving in return are actually useful and, you know, are beneficial to our community. So because this is a large hotel project. So I will let you think on it, and we can circle back a little later, but I'm 4 months in advance is not going to be enough for someone who's going to book this ballroom for 170 people.
And Councilmember Tal, I guess one thing I would maybe think about, I agree with you on the larger room, and I'm just curious, like, for the smaller boardroom, that may be less of an issue if it's just a meeting or community meeting of a dozen or 15 people. But for the larger ballroom,
If you're doing a large event.
Right, I agree with you that it's sort of almost useless for a nonprofit to do it. The only reason they would do it is if something fell through where they were before and had to go somewhere. So I'm concerned about that too, that it is sort of a hollow offer in terms of being able to use that space, the ballroom space. So,
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll put a pin in that. I wanted to also talk about, our city attorney mentioned this, the offer of community rooms expires after 15 years. And I wanted to, this hotel will be around for a very long time. So are you open to having a discussion on year 14 about potentially extending that time? The offer for the community rooms?
Yeah, well, actually, Lisa and I discussed it this afternoon, and I talked it internally, and we could go up to 18 years from 15, so we could increase it by 20% to 18 years.
Okay. And then it would be a solid expiration, or would at year 17, would you and your partners be willing to entertain potentially extending it?
It would be in business, we like basically to know when something starts, when something ends. And I think 18 years would be basically a stopping point. Our license with the hotel group is about that long as well, so.
I see.
Yeah, but I discussed internally, and we could go up to 18 years. Yeah.
And just to be clear, that's from the certificate of occupancy, so it's not 18 years from now, it's 18 years from the hotel being completed.
Operations, right.
Okay. I'll be interested to hear what my colleagues think of that, since the hotel will be here in perpetuity. And then my final question, I'd like to look at slide 20, please, of the applicant slideshow. Is it slide 20? Yeah, we can look at slide 20. Oh, I'm sorry, Crystal. Well, I'll give the intro. The slide, there were several different slides. This is the rendering of the trees along Industrial, and I assume, yes, you can use that one. Wait, you can go back to, and it's the same slide. Yep, right there, that's good. So the top slide shows the trees, and I assume, that these evergreen trees were used to kind of screen the windows from the neighborhood across the street. And I am concerned, something that we've heard a lot from our East Side community is light pollution and the light from different developments, signage shining over into the neighborhood. So I'm wondering, number one, how is light going to be handled from these rooms that face out along Industrial? And what size, are these the size of trees that will be planted, or is this looking into the future when these trees have been growing for 10 years? How tall will those be when they're planted?
I'll defer to Tom Holloway, KLA Landscape.
Hi there. Yeah, what we're seeing in that rendering is something more like a 5 to 10 year growth on the trees. We have been talking with the neighborhood community in that area, and we are going to put those trees in initially at large size. So they're going to go in as a 36-inch or a 36-inch box or a 48-inch box. So, we're going to start off with a 14 to 18 foot trees. So, they're not going in as twigs. And we're also actively working with planning and with the neighborhood committee too, as the plans go through construction documentation. We're going to work with the neighborhood community on the selection of the species and make sure that everybody's good with it as well.
Thank you. And so when you showed the community those trees, that was acceptable to the neighborhood?
I'll let Lisa speak to that. My memory is that the concept was it was brought up that the soil and water can be tricky associated with the bay in that area, which we recognize that as being an issue. And they did mention that the trees have not performed well down by the Marriott down the street a little bit further. So that's what really prompted us to spend a little more time looking at the species and then coordinating with the neighborhood group on that.
Right, that's right. That was my final question of this set, is that this area is known for its brackish water, and the city has really struggled with trees along Industrial. So I'm wondering what your plan is are the trees that you're planting amenable to brackish water, or what are you doing to offset that?
They will be. We actually have an exhibit that we've put together of 7 or 8 different tree species that perform very well in a brackish environment, but we just haven't gotten to the point where we've made a selection yet. So that's why I'm kind of deflecting a little bit, but we are going down that road.
Okay, thank you. It would be my preference to have the largest trees planted possible because of the light coming from the development into the neighborhood. I do think that's a concern.
Yeah, and luckily there's a good distance between. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can make your final thought, and then I'll pass it back to the mayor.
I was just going to say there is a pretty good distance across Industrial, and yeah, definitely having those trees there is gonna filter that light. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll defer, and then I have another set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember McDowell. I had a couple questions, and I think I think I know the answer to this, but we are in the process of setting up a transportation management agency, and can you just confirm that the hotel would participate in that?
Yes, that's required as a condition of approval, and they've agreed to that.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't see anything in there, but it was a lot of paperwork. Were they including being purple pipe ready for the landscaping?
I don't. This is the landscape architect. That'll come through with requirements from Public Works. We don't have an issue with that. If recycled water is available, that would be the only caveat.
Sure. So at this point, it is our intention to bring recycled water in. And so I believe just about every other project that we've approved has at least made themselves purple pipe ready.
Yeah.
So that, and obviously now is a good time to do it before you sort of break ground and start doing work, if that's the case. So that would be one thing if you guys are amenable to being purple pipe ready.
Yeah, I would have no issue with that whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. And then I had one question, then I'll turn it back to Councilmember McDowell. And I appreciate also all the presentation, all the work on this. Obviously, a lot has gone into it, so thank you for that. I've shared my concern on the community room space. On the traffic and on the, can you just talk a little bit about with the left-hand turn, how much does that encroach on the 2-lane traffic going through? How much space, is that going to impact that at some point if things are backed up? And why did you not just consider a U-turn on East San Carlos Avenue?
Thank you for the question. The current left turn, northbound left turn from Industrial onto Holly is longer. It is, for lack of saying it delicately, it's probably oversized at this point. There's been, and this isn't just in relation to COVID, a lot of the traffic analysis has a base year of what we do in San Carlos of 2019, pre-COVID, when things were at its peak at the time. We haven't returned to that point. I don't know if we will, but it's still building. So there is room to reconfigure that left turn lane and turn it into a 2-way left turn. So they have that left turn pocket for the project of about 75 feet. Then you have a bit of a transition. Thank you to whoever is magically doing this. telepathically. I made that.
I see.
And so we have the ability to shorten the northbound pocket to, this shows 160 feet, and then there's a 60-foot taper, which is basically sort of a transition zone. That's about as short as we want that northbound left turn lane. We're not going to want to go shorter than that. That's based on the cumulative future forecasts, sort of a general plan build out. What do we need, not just today, but what will we need in the future for that northbound left turn lane? So it's a reallocation of space that we think works pretty well and is appropriately sized for the needs in both directions.
Okay, but I guess I should have clarified. I was considering more on the southbound one. Is that how much would that impact the traffic, the 2-lane traffic flow on industrial?
Sure. So it actually helps to take that out of the main flow of traffic, out of those 2 lanes going southbound, and put it into a separate pocket. So it's less opportunity or less chance that it backs up from East San Carlos itself. Now, one of the few intersections that's projected to operate at a very good service level and continue to do so is industrial in East San Carlos. That's probably because the amount of activity on the bay side, what I call the east side of East San Carlos Avenue, so away from downtown but towards the water, there's not as much traffic there between there and 101. Mm-hmm. So that there's not a heavy left turn movement, towards the Marriott, and there's not as much activity on that side of East San Carlos Avenue. However, the amount of space to do a U-turn for a truck or for a car, plus the amount of time it takes, would add a fair amount of delay. That's the reason there's probably space for it now. I don't recall the dimensions, but even if there's space, what it does in terms of disrupting the flow on Industrial Road in either direction, the reason there's no left turns in either direction at these intersections is to try and maintain flow on Industrial Road and to kind of keep things moving. So when you start adding U-turns, it really adds a lot to that left turn movement, the amount of time it takes at the signal to make that maneuver, and it just starts adding congestion. As congestion continues to grow year over year and what we're projecting for the future, I wouldn't want to add or take away the U-turn restriction. I think we're all going to be better off if we keep the traffic as it is, the way the traffic control works now.
Okay, and just one kind of follow-up on that. So going northbound right now, there's not as much traffic as I think that's, if I'm restating what you stated. But we've got, 1, 2, 3, at least 4 projects going from Britain north, either in construction or built, plus other ones along. And so it's the assumption that some will go south to Whipple to go north, or, I don't know, if it's me, I never think to go south to north, right? So we're going to see presumably more traffic coming in on that road. And how does that get triggered on that southbound left-hand turn lane? Is there a trigger there for the signal? Because right now, I don't think I hardly ever stop on East San Carlos Avenue because it's either someone coming from the hotel or there. I know you talked about having a break. I'm just concerned that how does that break get triggered?
Okay, so 2 things. One, in our cumulative analysis, we looked at not just the pending projects, ones that are approved, ones that are under construction, which are approved but not yet occupied. That's built into our near-term analysis. And then ones that are in the general plan, not yet approved, say Alexandria, for example, other projects that may come online, that's in the cumulative analysis. That intensification in the East Side Innovation District is accounted for in the cumulative analysis. And there's a fairly long list of projects in the traffic analysis that says this is what we considered and what's known at the time. So that's all in there. In terms of what triggers a change in traffic control or when a left turn lane might be activated, most of the signals in the area have some level of detection, whether it's in the pavement or whether it's a video camera that detects when a left turn is, someone's in the left turn lane, wants to make that turn. It could also adjust traffic in real time in terms of a traffic signal plan that can be adaptive or reactive to the traffic that's out there. Now, the signals on Industrial Road don't have the advanced signal timing plans at this point, but that's a routine kind of upgrade that occurs over time as traffic continually gets monitored and those adjustments get made. So there's the potential to do more with traffic signal timing and detection without actually having to worry about physical improvements, which quite frankly, within the available right-of-way are very, very difficult and not necessarily recommended.
Okay, that's really helpful. I appreciate that. I could probably talk traffic with you for hours, but I won't tonight. All right, anyone else? And then I know Councilman McDowell had a couple more follow-up questions. Does anyone else before okay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that helpful explanation. I'm going to build on what the mayor just said because I see a couple of us up here looking at our maps. We're looking at our Google Maps. So, you know, I've brought this up before in other development projects. I think unprotected left-hand turn lanes are incredibly dangerous. This is federally recognized in NHTSA standards. I think that the flow of traffic along Industrial, as Councilmember Collins said, is really fast. We have cars, we have large trucks. I think it's actually going to be difficult for people to make that left-hand turn, cross 2 lanes of traffic, and get into the driveway. So, as the mayor said, you know, I'm a little disappointed that we're not more seriously considering the U-turn at East San Carlos Avenue. I'm looking at it now. There's a left-hand turn lane that's protected from the other 2, you know, that's separated from the other 2 lanes of traffic. And, you know, I don't know. I think it's the safer option. Does safety come into play when we're looking at these?
Safety's at the top of the list. Before operation, service level, and delay, safety's always at the top of the list. It's got to be. So with respect to the safety of people being able to make that left turn into the driveway, the traffic signal at East San Carlos would create the gap in traffic flow that's going to allow those vehicles to make a left. Now,
right,
that
I understand that, but what the mayor said was that's rarely triggered because there's not a lot of people coming to trigger it.
The left turns might not be triggered all the time because there might not always be turns there. However, the signal eventually will have to time out. It can't be green north and south without ever switching. If the city finds that that's not being triggered often enough, the city can change the timing so that a red light is triggered more often on Industrial Road. Now, that has an effect further down at Commercial Britain and so on, but you get the idea that that's something that's not that hard to adjust. Question was posed to me earlier today. What if it backs up from the left turn pocket, or what if the vehicles aren't able to make those lefts and they're just constantly waiting, and then they start to okay. So what happens if a vehicle can't get into that left turn pocket and wait? Well, what will happen is a vehicle will continue past there. Most of the vehicles that want to access are going to come from the north side, want to make a left. If they can't get into that left turn pocket, they'll go to East San Carlos, they'll make a left, they'll find a way to turn around, they'll come back north and then enter by making a right turn. Basically the same thing as making a U-turn, but doing it legally. That's how I'm describing it, okay?
Going into the parking lot and making a
Unfortunately,
turn.
that actually, in terms of what actually happens, and I deal with reality, what happens in traffic flow, that's what someone would do. Okay, if they can't pull into that left turn pocket and wait. We expect to have gaps in the traffic flow, but if someone who's a regular user says, you know what, I'm not going to make that left because I just don't want to wait there, they might say, I'm going to just go back and then I'll turn, and it's easier for me to kind of do these circuitous routes. Could that happen? Yes. There's not room to physically change things within the right-of-way. Again, I'm not advocating that we remove the no left turn restriction because I'm looking at it in the bigger picture of what happens on Industrial Road and trying to maintain that. And both Old County Road and Industrial Road are going to be increasingly more difficult corridors in the future. And this is something we're looking at citywide with other projects. And so each individual project has its own incremental effect, and that's what we're talking about. Okay. So I can just answer it that way.
Yeah, no, I do that in Redwood City sometimes too. I make the false left. So, okay. So my next question, so this is actually a good slide to show kind of the improvements that will be made at some point. Do we have a time frame for when we're going to make the improvements at Industrial and Holly?
I asked the city engineer that question, and we do not. We're still awaiting the funding to implement the project.
Is that tied to the 101 overpass project, or is that
connected?
Okay. Thank you. And then my final question, and this was brought up already, is the cumulative impact. And I saw in the traffic study the analysis of the future traffic demand projects in several of our largest intersections in this area, which assume the completion of this project plus several of our large planned developments that the mayor mentioned. And I just wanted to flag for my colleagues that Table 11 on page 542, the results are concerning. It shows 4 intersections falling to a grade of F and 2 intersections falling to a grade of E, both of which mean an unacceptable level of operation. So I know that we have our general plan update going right now, and we're going to look at the traffic impacts kind of cumulatively. Can you give us an update on where that effort stands with the general plan and looking at the traffic impacts?
Yeah, you've got the right team here, because PlaceWorks is working on that general plan reset for us. But what we need is some build-out numbers. And so we're looking to get the preferred land use alternative kind of decided, some direction from the council on that before we can feed that, I'm sorry, for the Northeast specific plan area. I didn't complete that sentence. And then that information will help feed into what's the total build-out we want to look for the general plan reset effort. And then the traffic analysis would be teed off of that information. So I think we're hoping to receive all that information by about February, and then we can start doing the transportation analysis.
And then is that report kind of, it takes like a year to do that, or what?
Yeah, it'll be about a year to complete both the plan itself and the EIR. So it's, typically an EIR, especially one of this magnitude, would take a year to finish.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just note that, and I raised this at our retreat, it's hard for me to feel a level of comfort approving all of these big projects without a plan in place to offset the traffic impacts. And I feel like seeing this table and all the Fs, it's concerning. And I think we have a lot of work to do and, budget allocations to make to try and deal with the traffic. And I think timing is really important so that we're taking traffic into account as these projects are getting built and not have a 10-year delay between, a project getting built and traffic improvements being made. So with that, that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know who went next, but I'll go with Vice Mayor Dugan and then Councilmember Collins.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, Mark, more questions for you. I appreciate my colleagues' concerns about traffic flow, et cetera, and I was just looking at what exists today. I just want to, so we're gaining an extra lane here, and is that because we are carving into this property to some extent?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's a 10-foot dedication into the property itself in order to accommodate the extra through lane.
Yes, got it.
And just to clarify, this would be built by the city in the future when the funding is all in place, not by this project, but the city has acquired the property that's necessary from this project to do so.
Got it. So we will actually own that strip, or that's like an easement now, or?
It will be part of the right-of-way, yes.
Okay, that's great. Glad we're not just, jamming more lanes in. But as what exists today, however, is the bike lane picks up between the 2 right turn lanes and the lane going straight across. It kind of like is in the middle there, presumably allowing someone to make a left on Holly to get to the train station, which is kind of foreseeable. And I notice here it looks like the bike lane is now dedicated to sort of route you east over Holly, and I'm trying to get my head around the thinking there.
Yeah, I think this is a conceptual plan that was provided to the applicant, and it's not the full build out.
Okay.
So, I think
So
our
all of
traffic
this can be
engineers.
like this is just a placeholder thinking is the idea, is what we're saying?
And I would really need to have the city's traffic engineer and city engineer to respond to those questions. But I don't believe this has been finalized. But the width has been, right?
I see.
The land we need, but where the bike lanes land
Got it.
may
So
not have been.
doesn't, I get it. This isn't specifically what we're approving or considering here tonight. So I do get that. My 2 cents would just be, I think we'd want 2 lanes turning left and really want to think through that bike lane when we get there as a city. And then, yeah, that was my only follow-up. Thank you.
Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, Lisa, this one's for you. I wasn't planning on asking another question, but Councilmember McDowell brought up the whole connection between the intersection and the overpass project. And I thought I heard that the improvements to Holly and Industrial are tied to the overpass project,
That's
correct?
my understanding from the city engineer.
Well, that project is who knows how many years in the future. Are we looking at not making any of these lane change improvements until that is done? And if that's the case, is there a way to divorce that from the overpass project?
I think that would be a great question for the Public Works Director.
Okay.
Sorry. Not here.
And he's not here. I didn't think so.
I mean, that's the answer I got when I talked to the city engineer.
I think that's something that we ought to talk about. I mean, this is a project that's going to be built probably in the next couple of years.
Right,
And
so something to consider, sorry, off topic a little bit, but for the strategic retreat might be that, right? And also the transportation projects that we consider in the capital improvement project and what the fees are based off of is all in a nexus study, right? That was prepared last in 2020. So maybe that's something that wants to get updated and then take a look at this, because all the fees that you're collecting from developments is based on that nexus study. And then all the projects are based off the nexus study. But all that's doing is trying to squeeze more cars and be more efficient. We also need to look at how we reduce traffic, right? And that's with the TMA that we talked about, and more bike lanes, and more pedestrian access.
I get all that.
All integrated.
My only concern is that if we are trying to tie improvements for existing projects and projects in the immediate future, and now they're connected to a freeway overpass project that has been delayed as long as I've been on the council, that concerns me. So
I'm sorry, I can't answer that further.
I know, and I know you can't. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Collins. Okay, are there any other questions? If not, okay, let's see if there's any public comment on this item.
Yes, we do have one slip from Jeff Maley.
Jeff, thanks for waiting us out.
Hi, I'm Jack Milley. I live on Hall Street, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to speak tonight. And the issue I'm concerned about is one that I've heard mentioned several times, which pleases me a lot. It's just that traffic, that traffic that the hotel's going to generate. Specifically, initially, it was just that left turn in. If you're coming off of down Holly towards Industrial, and you're trying to make that left, pretty much every other car goes into that gas station. And so now, just a little farther down, you're going to have a lot of other cars going into the hotel, and I think that's going to create a really uncomfortable bit. I'm not a traffic guy, but I drive that a lot, and that's what I see. And the other question I had for the developers is that, if with all these projects going up on Old County, if business travelers are going to be going from this hotel up there, they're going to try to pull out to make the right, immediately go across a couple of lanes of traffic to make a left turn to get onto Holly, which sounds like would be challenging. On top of that, there are currently still only the mock-ups, and I think this was covered, shows 2 lanes going northbound on Industrial, but currently there's only 1. So just overall, very concerned about what the traffic will look like as a resident of that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Let me now see if there's any comments from the council on this.
Public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to close public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell,
Yes.
and Mayor Rack.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I will see if there's public council comments on this. Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we go back to the reservations and just discuss the 4 months versus?
I spoke with the developer, and they are agreeable to that second floor event space at a 12-month reservation. So that would be for half of the committed events, and then the lower space would be 4 months. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we, at this point, just talking about our general impressions of the project, or are you just asking for more questions and clarification?
If there's any more questions or clarifications, that's fine. And if not, any sort of comments, and then to see if we want to move to adopt a resolution here or not.
Okay, I was going to give my general thoughts on this. My questions have been answered. Well, first of all, on the positive side, I like the project. I think it's a beautiful hotel. I like where it's situated. This is what we envisioned 8-9 years ago. I like the fact that it's coming to fruition, hopefully. But I struggle with a couple things. One is the whole traffic issue, and it's sort of an open question. Can we approve these resolutions, ordinance changes, and still work on some of the concerns that I've heard expressed on this dais tonight? So that's kind of it's half rhetorical, half for staff. I'm conflicted in that I like the project. I want to approve the project. I think it's really good for the community, but I struggle with these traffic flow issues, and I want to be made to feel more comfortable about them. It's a tricky area, and we are growing. We have a lot of projects going on. I don't like to approve things that aren't warranted, like U-turn lanes or stop signs or anything like that. But I hear that what I'm hearing is a discomfort with this whole traffic circulation pattern, and that gives me some pause. So I'd like to hear from everybody else and see what you're thinking on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No. I'm trying to get some more information, see if we can get somebody on the line to potentially talk about the project from that. Councilmember Venkatesh, did you have other?
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilmember Collins. It's a well thought out plan, and I like the vision of the hotel and what the benefits it can bring to our community. But I too struggle with the traffic and getting in and getting out, and the 2 left lanes and all the questions we had. So I just wanted to say I support Councilmember Collins on that statement.
Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate my colleagues' thoughts. I guess what gives me a little comfort with this project is that people come and go at hotels at all hours. It's not going to be everybody comes in at 8:30 in the morning and everyone goes home at night at 5. I think many of us have arrived to hotels at 10 o'clock at night and leave early the next morning to catch a flight. And so I do think that is one of the many benefits of this project, is that it's not more life science or office space. It's a hotel. It will have different hours of use. The traffic, there will be an impact on traffic, but I do expect it to be more staggered than a commercial, office project. But I do share the concerns, and I've shared this at our retreat too, and I think that maybe during our strategic retreat, we should carve out some time to talk about the traffic impact study of the general plan update. And I think that we are all going to, I I personally will struggle as we continue to potentially approve more projects, knowing that it will add to congestion without having some solutions in place for us to budget money towards in our budget process. And as I mentioned, this table 11 in the traffic study, you know, we obviously have work to do. So, so those are my thoughts, and I do want to thank the developer also for the flexibility with the ballroom space. I think that that will be very useful to our nonprofits. And what I have found with other development projects that are currently being used by our nonprofits is that people go and they say, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful space. I'm gonna have my parents stay here the next time they're in town, or, you know, when my colleagues come, they'll stay too. So I think it's a win-win, and I appreciate your flexibility tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember McDowell. Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, no, I congratulate the applicant and welcome him and his investment to town. He's been here a while. They've been here a while, but it'll be nice to see this project come to fruition. And I agree. I have no doubt friends and family of mine will enjoy staying there. And I can't wait to check out that atrium and the outdoor amenities, and maybe in 20 years take that bike path too. But anyway. So I appreciate all my colleagues' concerns, and I appreciate the flexibility on the large event center. So I am prepared to approve this tonight with the large event center with 1 year advance notice, the boardroom with 4 months advance notice, both obligations running 18 years, and landscaping being purple pipe ready. Those do align with things we've been consistently concerned about, and I appreciate the applicant willing to work with us even here this evening. And I definitely share my colleagues' concerns about traffic and circulation in general. I think we have a lot of work to do as a city on this. I don't think we can, hold up this particular application over it, because I think as a city, we have a lot of general work to do and general plan and otherwise. I will refresh my colleagues' memory. At our very last meeting, we did approve an $850,000 budget over the course of the next year for traffic and circulation engineers, and that's specifically dedicated on a traffic signal and circulation master plan. So I do think we have some wheels in motion in this direction, and frankly, I intend to highlight and make a focus of that next year, because I too share our general concern, and I do believe there's some low-hanging fruit there. We don't have smart signals in town yet. A lot of our technology is quite old there, so I think there's a lot we can do as a town, and I'm glad we're all kind of share the concern and get focused on it, because whether we want it or not, density is finding San Carlos, and we've got to make the city work. So, but I don't see any of that as a reason to hold up this project tonight. So I intend to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Dugan. Councilmember Collins, did you want to add something?
Just one comment. I want to thank Councilmember Dugan for refreshing my short-term memory about that traffic study or that traffic work, and that does help. That makes me feel more comfortable about it. I had forgotten about that.
I just want to thank the applicant as well. Appreciate the flexibility on the items that were previously mentioned, and I would concur with Councilmember McDowell that we're not looking at regular traffic flow that we would have out of a office space or other business as well. I think when we had the 405 industrial project, I have bigger concerns about that in terms of the impact of that and how we manage that long term, because that one we are allowing a left-hand turn out, which I'm still concerned about, but and I would agree on the traffic, but I don't think it's fair to hold one applicant hostage on something that is really, a big part of it is our responsibility to move forward as a city to look at sort of separating the interchange project with this intersection and kind of look at, as Vice Mayor Dugan talked about, some of the other improvements. And, as we continue to move forward, I think we just need to prioritize, when we get to our retreat, traffic and congestion as really a top priority for us moving forward, given all the growth and the density and the development we're getting. So I think it's a great project. I appreciate all the work and with staff and the developer on that, and I will be planning to support it as well. And I just want to also appreciate the outreach to the east side and working with them on the trees and landscaping. And so obviously the traffic is going to be a project that we're going to keep working on. So thank you. Okay, with that, I will call for a motion. We've got a couple items on here, so we can go. I think we have 3 separate ones.
And through the mayor, if I may ask our city attorney, which of these resolutions would have to have the amendments that we've agreed to this evening?
It would be the last one in the development agreement ordinance.
Okay, thank you. I can give that movement if someone else wants to give the others.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2023-143, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos certifying the final environmental impact report, adopting the California Environmental Quality Act findings of fact, and approving the associated mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program for the 501 Industrial Road Hotel project.
Second.
Okay, Krista, I have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Someone else? I think the vice mayor's already volunteered for the third one, so does
The
someone?
second.
Okay.
I move to introduce ordinance number
1607.
1607, an ordinance of the City of San Carlos approving the 501 Industrial Road Project Plan Development Plan and related zoning map amendment to rezone the project site from landmark commercial to planned development at 501 Industrial Road, APN 046-090-410.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, I move to introduce ordinance number
1608.
An ordinance of the City of San Carlos approving a development agreement with Holly Hotel Group LLC for the 501 Industrial Road Hotel project with the following amendments. The large event center may be reserved by nonprofits up to 1 year in advance. The boardroom may be reserved by our nonprofits up to 4 months in advance. Both of the above obligations shall run 18 years, and the on-site landscaping shall be plumbed purple pipe ready.
I'll second.
Okay. Oh. I think your mic isn't good.
I wasn't sure I was going to be making the changes. So the staff is talking, and just there's some clarifications on some of the items. There's on item G of the recitals, the use of the boardroom and the 2,900 square foot event space in the hotel would be for a maximum of total of 12 hours per month. Is the request to change on that one? There's in the definitions, event space and event spaces are defined as in section 6.3. The reservation request is also a defined term, which will be defined in section 6.3.1. On section 6.3, there's a typo. The word county is missing. It originally said San Mateo nonprofit. It should say San Mateo County nonprofit. And so throughout 6.3 and 6.3.1, we're just adding the word county. And then on Exhibit C, it turns out that the last item, building, planning, fire, public works permit fees are not required under the impact fees. And then finally, we do not, am I reading this right? The Exhibit C impact fee schedule is no longer required either. Those were just some typos that came up in the version of the development. So I'm recommending that that be included in the motion introducing the ordinance.
My motion is amended to include the edits just now highlighted by the city attorney.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Moving on to item 12, public comment. This is persons wishing to address the city council on matters not in the posted agenda may do so. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. Do you have any speaker slips, Crystal?
There are no speaker slips.
Okay, and that moves us to adjournment. I just wanted to take a moment, I know it's not listed here, but to adjourn the meeting in honor of former supervisor and former county sheriff and also Sequoia board member Don Horsley. Supervisor Horsley was I would say an active and well-loved public servant in the county and serving over 30 years in this capacity. And I want to close the meeting in his honor and offer on behalf of the council and the city our condolences to his family. And with that, we are adjourned.